Share something you've experienced that makes you wonder about posture in yourself. I've always been into posture, and in my 30-year career, I was bound and determined that I was not going to be one of those hygienists that was going to go out on disability for neck, wrist, back, hip, any disability. And so I have always been very, very into, standing and getting my posture and sitting right and having the right chair and, everything that I can utilize to help me continue my career. Where do you stand? I stand on all the aware side. I'm not proficient in any. So, yes. So, because I'm aware of all those things, I have been throughout my entire career, but I never feel like I'm to the point where I could speak or teach or show somebody else. So, but just always going and hoping that, just the more that I learn, the more efficient I'll become. So, in as much of that a hygienist can do. So, because we're limited on what we're allowed to do. So, and then what are you hoping to get out of this workshop?
You're in practice right now with Dr. Sam Press, who actually patented his own anterior positioning airway device. He's very innovative, extraordinary, and he's in our airway study club.
Yeah. So, and unfortunately, he couldn't be here. He was at another convention out of town, so I'm his representation. So yeah, and and it's been a journey this year, because I don't know if a lot of you probably have heard that he had a stroke, and so he officially came back October 1st and took over his practice, and so he has a little bit of a speech impediment, and so I have to do a lot of communicating for him, which also helps me on my journey, because I have to be more proficient. I am his voice. So
very knowledgeable.
So, because I can understand him so much more just being around him every day. So I'm usually there by his side. So, yeah. So, so it's been an experience.
Good morning, guys. I'm Angela Orfanos. I'm a orthodontist, and I work with Karen Doman, who's coming later. She's seeing some patients this morning, and it's like when you see something, you can't unsee it, is how I feel about this whole journey. And it's crazy, like when I graduated from residency 13 years ago, a kid would have a tongue thrust, and we might just finish a case with an open bite, and you'd say, okay, let's drill a hole in the acrylic of that holly, and you just put your tongue up there, and we're just going to finish you a little bit of open bite, and hopefully you don't have any flare-ups or pain. And that's just what we were taught. And now you learn about the tongue, and I'm just randomly talking about this, but what I see now, it's just amazing, and it's opened my eyes. And I have to give credit to my good friend Laura, who really opened Karen and I's eyes up to, or just the tongue and shape of the palate. And then I meet Mike, and we've known Alice for a long time, and it's just been incredible. So I have so much more to learn. I'm just going to throw that out there. I think my personal experience is I've had just pretty bad neck pain in my mid to late 30s, and I just kind of put up with it. I'm like, well, this is what I do. It's my profession. I'm just going to have bad neck pain. And I remember Alice came to our office one day in the clinic with her kiddos, and she's telling me, and she's excited, and she's telling us all about this journey with Mike and her just getting to know him and what she's learned. And next thing I know, I'm on the floor with my feet up on the ottoman in the clinic, and I'm doing like hamstring exercises. Yeah, to like de-rotate my pelvic. Anyway, it's just been cool. And I've been a patient of Mike's and James, and I've learned so much. I have so much more to learn. I feel like but it's so fascinating, and I want to learn more. And I think, like Neela said last night, it's just a matter of like connecting the dots, which is tricky. So I'm not proficient, I'm aware, but I just love this, and I love the track we're on, and I'm excited about today. And I know I speak the same for Karen. I mean, we'll talk and we're like, can you believe that? And like, well, can you believe that that's happening? And then what can be done and what we're seeing. And you think about all the patients that go under the radar and they just deal with stuff and they're not in pain. And then things that could happen are ticking time bombs that are happening that could happen down the road just by looking at their occlusion and things we see. So anyway, I think what I want to get out of the workshop is just get more of a way to just kind of catch things and know that I may not be proficient at it, but at least be aware and then learn to redirect a patient if we need to and work with this team to help them. So thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I think you and Karen will be the first postural, dental postural certified orthodontist in the country.
Oh, we would love that. That would be great.
Well, we can certify through our AIA fellowship program.
Okay. We'll do it.
Hi guys, I'm Dr. Rachel Perry. I'm a biological dentist, or I've been only 2 years now. 2 years. I've jumped into the biological dentistry world, and I guess my journey, yeah, that's the type of practice. So my journey to that was, I had my eyes opened in a biological dentistry 101 class, and it just, considering holistic and natural, and it made sense. I don't know, it just clicked, something clicked, and I jumped and I sold my practice and I work with Dr. Scott and I love it. But it is definitely a journey, and then you start opening your eyes and looking at things in a different way. And I was thinking back, so I guess my personal journey is, I thought I was pretty healthy, a nice, healthy person. And then I remember small things, like I went to the chiropractor 6 years ago because my neck was starting to hurt. And I'm like, God, I'm way too early in my career, even though it was almost 10 years in, to be having neck pain. So I went to a chiropractor, and their questionnaire asked about headaches. And I was like, yeah. And they were asking me, well, how often? I'm like, well, what do you mean? Like, I don't know. There's like some form of a headache. It varies, but almost daily, at least 5 times a week. And she looked at me like I was crazy. And I'm like, what? That's not normal? That's my normal? like a minor, just dull ache, or an actual substantial headache. So then it just goes, oh, that's not normal. Okay. Being tired all the time, I get into airway, and I've learned a lot about airway through Dr. Scott and her practice. And again, it's like, oh, it's not normal to feel tired all the time. I blamed it on dental school. I blamed it on kids. Measured my airway. I have a tiny airway. I have wear on my teeth. I have, you start noticing all the things. I joked yesterday, I tried a DNA appliance, and in taking my pictures in front of the grid, I noticed how extremely asymmetrical I am.
We love you.
Right? And I was like, so I've got all the things, and I had sleep apnea. I was 1 point under moderate sleep apnea. My kids told me I snore all the time, and before realizing the ramifications of it, I'm like, well, just sleep in your own room. Leave me alone. It is what it is. And so you just, again, every little bit that you learn, it just opens your eyes. So I'm excited to be on a journey and get there. My biggest personal, other than just all the signs, I still feel fairly healthy. I don't have lots of aches and pains that are major enough to feel debilitating. Mine is on the mental health side of things. Life is very overwhelming. Life is very heavy, and again, learning about it, it's like, well, sure, if you're not sleeping well, I guess, I just wonder. And then you hear about dentistry being, when I was a kid, everybody always said, oh, dentists have high suicide rates. Why would you want to be a dentist? And I don't know how true that still is, but it is still an issue. And
I heard it's still true.
yeah.
Big issue.
Yeah, so and then I'm not suicidal by any means, but I don't know if I could say my anxiety / ADHD or whatever mental health component I have is debilitating, but because I function, but it's heavy. And I fantasize about a world when I get to wake up and I don't feel so heavy. And I think a lot of this would have something to do with it, and airway, but putting all the pieces together, because I learned and understood the airway part of it, and I'm getting it and grasping it, very aware, not proficient. And I used the DNA appliance and to start, and I was good for a couple months, but then I got to a point where I'd wake up in the morning and I couldn't put my teeth back together, but then it would go back together and it'd be fine. But I just am like, I don't know how to finish this, so I got scared and I stopped. So, so that's where I'm at in my journey. So yes, that's my stand. I'm very aware. I'm stealing Lauren's thing, but I don't feel super proficient in much of it. Other than being the single tooth and quadrant dentist, I am really good at dentistry. I love it, and I feel very good at that. But proficient in occlusion, not so much, and proficient in the airway and the head and neck, like not where I'd want to be. And so that's what I'm hoping to get out of this is a way to put it all together, because I feel like I've learned lots of parts of it and I believe in all of it, but I want to put it all together and eventually become proficient. And hopefully I'll be allowed to admit that I'm proficient someday.
Thank you. That's just lovely.
I just realized too that I switched the laptop, so your continuum, the timeline
Yeah.
Right.
that we had up there, so you just have to go by memory.
I think
So,
we remember it.
that was perfect. I was like, wow, is that up there? And I went, wait a minute, that's not even up there. You're good.
Well, I have a direct view.
There you go.
Well, hi, my name's Syra. I work with Dr. Scott and Dr. Perry, and I love it. I'm a biological hygienist, and I started my journey with Dr. Scott in 2014, and in 16 is when we started to do the airway classes. And I came home and I realized that my husband has sleep apnea really bad. So next thing he was he got himself tested and he stopped breathing like 100 times an hour. And they put the CPAP on him, and then it was zero. It went down to zero. So I think I saved his life. So yeah, but of course he's not. He's very conventional, so he hasn't had any expansion, and he's not interested, and that's fine. But I always see it in the other and not in myself. So that's how I am. So what I would like to do is to help my patients. Dr. Scott and Dr. Perry sometimes can only give maybe 50% or 75%. So I think that my job would be to fill in that 25% so that they get 100%. And that's what I'm hoping to get out of this workshop, is just to be able to educate them and convey whatever I see. Of course, I'm not allowed to diagnose, but just help them so that they can make better choices for themselves. As you said, make their own treatment plan. So
The patient.
well, as hygienists, we're not allowed to, so we can give them clues. We say, well, no, we tell them, you see something suspicious. There's a hole. I see something suspicious. But it's not, it's the wording. Right. Yeah.
That's very powerful. I mean, hygienists and powerful in giving the patients a sense of awareness. They trust the hygienist more than they trust the doctor sometimes, because we only see patients every now and then. Y'all see them twice a year or 4 times a year. I think they trust the hygienist a lot more than you think. Yeah, way more.
They do. Like when we
I teach my hygienist, you're their buddy. I'm the doctor. So even though I'm likable, they're gonna sit there and you got 50 minutes with them, or an hour and 10, whatever you've got.
Right. Like if Dr. Scott's talked about the airway to them and explained it, right, after she's left, they'll say, what do you think? Do you think I should do it? Is it, So then it's my turn to say yes or, yeah.
And
Or-
the hygienist, I tell my hygienist, talk.
Well, some like to be talked to, some don't like to be talked to. And some don't like to hear it from the hygienist, some like to hear it from the dentist. So you have to, that's how it is. So then you have to kind of read the patient and see. No, you're fine. Yeah. Oh, well, it's thanks to Dr. Scott. I mean, she has taken me for every CE she's been to. I mean, she's educated me. She's really invested in me a lot. So I'm very grateful. Yeah, so it's very empowering, you know. So, yeah. So that's it.
Hello, I am Teresa Scott. I'm a airway-centered biological dentist is what I like to call myself. Let's see, share something you've experienced that made you wonder about airway. Well, I tend to learn everything as either, like, I guess most of us, we sort of go into it thinking either about ourselves or our loved ones. And so for airway, my husband and my daughter are my whys. And then a few months ago, I heard Mike speak at an airway study club that Alice invited me to. And once again, just like with airway, my world was turned on its axis. And I realized that I probably needed them. So week ago, I went and became a patient for the first time. And one exercise that he tried to show me how to do, and it locked my body up into a full body cramp, like 15 minutes of me crying, going, oh my God, I'm gonna die, kind of thing. So I know for sure that I'm in the right place and I'm learning what I need to learn. And it's going to continue with my journey on getting better. Because I live with constant pain. And then where am I hoping to get? I'd like to consider myself proficient in everything, but I'm like Rachel. I'm really, really good at fillings and crowns and surgery and stuff like that. And I'm not so bad at the airway component. I mean, I have a lot of really good success with airway, but I have patients like your Karen that flummox me, and I don't know how to fix those. And so in my mind, I'm not yet proficient. I don't know that I'm ever gonna be proficient, honestly, because the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know. And so I don't know that I'm ever gonna get to the point where I feel proficient, and I don't know that I want to. Because the day that I quit learning is the day that I die. So even though every time I learn something new, I'm like, oh crap, something else to learn. It just tells me I'm not done. Because, the day that I feel that I'm done, I need to hang it up and not be a dentist anymore. And I love what I do, so I'm going to keep doing it.
Teresa, one of those people you just want to run up and hug.
Aww.
You want to run up and hug her. Of course, when she was having that spasm, all I wanted to do was video it.
They had to lift me, like, I couldn't get up, I couldn't uncurl, I was just, and even all of those things, because you say it's neuropulmonary, right? And I could literally feel even the muscles underneath my arms spasming, my ribs spasming, and ever since then, my rib cage has been spasming on both sides. It's been rough this last week, so.
But I'm so grateful that you are sharing with everyone, because none of us had any idea you were living with pain every day. She was having these spasms before she even met us, and she doesn't say anything to anybody. She's strong. And she's actually pretty badass, because she actually teaches biological dentistry and DNA appliances.
Actually, I don't teach DNA appliances.
The guy who wrote the book is her personal friend, because she helps him teach her class. If you guys want to know more about airway opening appliances, she's the guru in this room.
Aw, you're sweet. I don't think so. I teach airway I mentor airway. It's more like, I don't teach it so much as I mentor it for people, for Felix. Because I used to be one of the clinical advisors for Vivos. And I, corporate mentality is not my thing. So, I teach for Felix now, and I'm a happier person doing that. And I've got my group, and I teach them every week, every Wednesday, and that makes me happy. And I teach them what I know, but I can't teach them what I don't know, so I just keep learning. So,
Seems like we're always better tomorrow than we were today, you know, but Mercedes-Benz never apologizes for last year's model. So however we were then, you know, what we are today.
So I'm Deanna, and I'm a speech therapist, and currently focusing mainly on myofunctional therapy and feeding therapy. I've been a speech therapist for about 15 years. I feel like my experience started in childhood, really. I mean, I was a picky eater. I've had migraines since I was a kid. I've always struggled with overall posture. And then I was blessed to work in a setting where I was right next to occupational and physical therapists. And so I learned a lot from them. Got into neurodevelopmental therapy, took a couple courses, learned a little bit more about how, posture affects speech and oral motor and all that kind of stuff. Then I got trained in kinesiology taping, and I was taught by physical therapists and chiropractors. And then I learned about fascia and the trains. What do you call that? Fascial trains and body trains, and that really was fascinating to me. I bought the Anatomy Trains book, just really excited about that. Then I took a tongue tie course, and that's when I learned about myofunctional therapy. And I felt like this is what I'd been looking for all the time, all these little pieces. Oh, and then I also have been through premolar extraction and braces that relapsed and all these things. And I try to be a runner, but it's really hard to train just because I can't breathe through my nose when I'm running, all that kind of stuff. So everything kind of finally was putting all the puzzle pieces together and really making everything make sense. And so now I'd say I'm airway and is it posture? Aware, but definitely so much to learn. So nowhere near proficient. So I'm hoping to really be able to understand it a whole lot better so I can be more thorough in what I'm doing with my patients. So.
Thank you. My name is Rachel Garrett, and I'm a pediatric dentist. Love kids. They're my passion. They're my why. In dental school, I really enjoyed working with special needs children, and that was the avenue that really got me into pediatrics. A big focus of the practices that I've worked at, the last two have been tethered oral tissues. I was blessed in the previous practice that I worked with Dr. Amy. It was an airway-centered practice, and we were pretty heavy focus on releases. And so I was blessed to have a mentor in her, and also in Christy. Amy Lindeman, yes. And Christy Gatto also helped mentor me in learning about myofunctional therapy. So that has really helped to open my eyes, not just on tethered oral tissues, but in dental school, to be honest, we never learn about how your tongue functions, how swallow impacts, how you're breathing, anything like that. So that has really been eye-opening the last several years for me, how everything comes together. Something that I've noticed in myself about my posture, I don't know if this has happened to anybody else, but for myself, when I drive to work, I've never had a short commute. I've always had a 30, 45, maybe sometimes hour commute. So I don't always have the best posture. I have my left leg propped up. I sometimes do the lean. If everybody knows the lean, you just drive with the one hand. And yes, exactly. So a couple years ago, I noticed, well, when I have a short drive, I'm not tired. But when I have a longer drive, how come I'm getting tired? How come I have this pain in my side? And like this left side over here, it feels kind of tight or stretched out. And so I had spoken to a body worker about it, and she told me I have to work on, getting back to more normal, neutral position. And then as I learned more too, that my kind of central area is very important, pelvis, everything like that, that helped me to realize that, yes, my body is important to me, and how I move and work, that helps me to breathe and feel better. So I had to stop doing the lean and try better posture, and that helped me to feel better. Where do I stand and where do I want to stand? Definitely, I feel that I'm aware. I would like to continue to learn a lot more and as much as possible. Just like Laura said, I like to collaborate with other providers. I like to calibrate with people. I always feel that that is the best way to learn, is to, when I have other providers come into the office or I go and work with them, I like to see, how do you do your releases, or for myofunctional therapy, what do you see on other patients? Because that only helps both of us and the patients. The patients are our number one goal, to help with their success and their journey. And what I'm hoping to get out of this is just to continue to learn and grow so that I can not only help my patients, but a lot of times in the office, when I'm explaining stuff to the parents about their children, they're looking at me saying, I feel like you're actually talking about me. So this will help me to be able to help the parents get help for them as well. Thank you.
You're right, this microphone's really small. Hi, my name is Stephanie. I work with Dr. Lamb. I'm her hygienist. I actually feel really blessed to be here because I think everything happens for a reason, and somehow I found her. Before I was a hygienist, I was an assistant for 7 years, and it was just, I took this journey to be in dentistry because I wanted to help people, and I felt so unfulfilled in my career because it was just kind of run of the mill, like do this, do that. My inner feelings of caring for people kind of went deep down inside, and it just became a job. And so I would go home kind of unhappy and just wondering maybe if I had chose the right career. And then I found her. Sorry, I'm a little nervous right now. It's still too early in the morning and I drink coffee. But she has taught me so much. I'm like completely mind blown from the knowledge that I'm learning from her. And I feel fulfilled now. Postural therapy is actually really interesting to me because I tore my Achilles tendon 2 years ago, and I used to be a jogger for 10 years, and I did biking, and that was really big for me because it helped me release a lot of my mental stress. So I know my posture has changed because of that, like my left, yeah.
Well, I don't know when she was coming in earlier, but anyway, go ahead.
Was in my face too. Yeah, it was my left Achilles completely torn, and I had to get like surgery to get it fixed. And now that I can't really jog anymore, if I walk for a long distance, it kind of hurts my hip. So, and I'm a hygienist, so I think I'm gonna need PRI at some point. So, yeah, this seems
You're a human, you'll need something.
right. I just my back, it's killing me. But where do I stand is I am aware of everything. And I want to continue to learn. What I'm hoping to get out of the workshop is, with the knowledge that I learn here, I want to be able to explain, like, I guess, share that with my patients. Because every time I see certain patients, like, I look at their airway. I don't know everything, but when I hear her talk to patients, you know, hey, it's because of your posture, or it's because you're not breathing at night, it's because you have sleep apnea. It's amazing. I'm like, the patients are like, really? Is that what it is? You know? So I want to be able to explain to patients, you know, it's not just dental issues. There's more complete health related issues that could be going on that's causing issues with your dental. So I'm glad to be here.
Good morning. My name is Brenda Pinedo. I work for Dr. Lamb. I am currently her dental assistant, one of her dental assistants. This journey for me actually has been mind-blowing. I never expected to be here today. I was a teacher. I taught science and art, and it was one of my favorite things to do. And then I decided to change my, basically what I was doing every day to day. I wasn't being challenged enough. I wasn't learning enough. And then I so happened to get hired by Dr. Lamb, where I've learned amazing things. I joined her at the right moment.
Children's teacher.
Yeah. I taught
And when
they're my
I
babies.
needed somebody, I said, and I said I need someone who's a perfectionist, who's good with people, who's hardworking, great work ethics. And they said, you have to hire Miss Brenda. For real. And
Yeah.
then they
So they
called
job
her.
interviewed her.
They called her and said, are you looking for a job? And she says yes.
Yeah,
But she
they
didn't come for an interview.
yeah, they were
My children.
it's funny because they were like, oh well, it's an art opportunity. So I said, and I said an art. So in my head, I thought she wants me to paint a mural on her wall, maybe. And I was like, I'll take it. I'm blessed. So I show up to her office, and she's like, we need a lab technician and the molds, and we need you to, create these things, and they're very important. And for me, it wasn't just molds. For dentists, it's just like, oh, you just take molds. Cool. Like, you're the lab technician. But for me, I was like, oh my gosh, this is anatomy, and you're looking at the teeth, and why is the bite not fitting? And so I started noticing more and more about myself. I wanted to learn more about what was happening with patients and why their jaws, when we put them on articulators, fit a certain way. So I started realizing with Dr. Lamb, one day they put me in the chair and they're like, you're going to help her. And I was like, okay. And I don't remember a single thing I did during that procedure. And she comes out and she goes, you were amazing. Have you ever considered being a dental assistant? And I was like, no, so now, she's feeding me all this knowledge, and I'm also one of her patients. I am a patient who's constantly in pain. When I first attended the meeting where I went with Mike, I checked off every box that he said. So for me, I was like, that's what's been wrong with me. I've been seeing the wrong doctors this whole time. And so now I'm starting to put the pieces together, and through my journey of pain and what I'm currently going through my ortho, I can see it in the patient. I can connect with them. To me, they're not just patients. I see myself in them. So I know in the moment of their pain, what they're feeling, what they're going through. So I'm still learning from her, and I'm just her sponge right now who's obsessing over this. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Dr. Ann Chi, and for a period of time, I was told that I was a superwoman, and I heard it enough that I almost believed it. I have 26-year-old triplets. I have a 25-year-old, and early on in my career, I started with DenMed, then I went to Pankey's, and I went to, so I had Spears and all that. And I read these two books, The Road Less Traveled and 7 Habits. So, I'm quite anal, so I went, okay, spiritually, financially, physically, relational. I mean, I tried to do everything. I was tiger mom. I was like, trying to be the best dentist. And I actually thought I was doing pretty good, so. And about maybe 10 years ago, I thought, my teeth are not that great, a little bit crooked. I got to be perfect. So I put myself in Invisalign. I had worn a kind of like an anterior deprogrammer for a long time, and I was good. I mean, I really, I kickboxed, I ran, I lifted weights, so I was pretty good. When I went to Invisalign, it must have changed the way I got air or something. This is my theory. All of us, after 5 years of being good, I thought, I ended up with 2 root canals and lost a tooth. And I also noticed that I couldn't quite run or exercise like the way I could in the past. So that's what got me into the airway. And actually now I feel like I'm good enough, I'm sleeping better, I can walk with no pain. So, but it's not good enough because I can tell that I'm still grinding some, and I still can't quite run like I used to. So I'm so excited to be here. And what am I proficient at? Well, I'm not even sure if I can do a good prophy. I haven't done one in so long. But I definitely can do a good class 1. And everything else, you know, I'm still trying to be good. I mean, I'm still trying to be the best I can be.
Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm James Guzman. I'm kind of the local guy, so I do the PRI under the guidance of these fine folks here, and I've been learning PRI for a very long time. Yeah, so you see the gentleman over there, James Anderson and Mike Cantrell right there. I started learning from these guys many years ago, and so I worked in an outpatient setting, physical therapy setting, for over 20 years. And practicing and fine-tuning and getting this art down. And then when I was exposed to Dr. Lamb there, we kind of collaborated. And what we do is basically what they're going to present today, looking at airway, looking at posture, looking at neurology and asymmetry. And so it's a wonderful experience. And my goal for today is to meet y'all and for y'all to be able to have questions and interact with us. Because being the local guy, that's my role here, is to say, hey, you know, I'm approachable, I'm here to help, and let's see if we can work through this stuff together. That's my speech. No? Okay. Did it,
Give us a lowdown about Mike from home.
There's no lowdown.
do y'all know Tammy Cantrell?
Yeah, I'm Tammy. I have a fear of public speaking. My heart rate's probably 110 right now. I'm aware of everything and proficient in nothing, only because I live with him. So he's the proficient one. I'm aware because I hear about it all the time. And what you see is what you get. He's like this at home too. He wakes up wide open. He goes to bed wide open.
Okay. There you go.
Super easy. He's an easy guy.
This is new for me. To do this right here.
This is her first time hearing her husband in a workshop ever.
I'm a patient, but it's neat to watch him teach it as well. He and James are definitely a dynamic duo.
So, you know, every year we're either at James's house or James is at my house. And, you know, we're always kind of collaborating. We're on the phone all the time trying to sort out this material and get a bigger and grander understanding of this. And on that whole proficiency thing, Laura, I mean, I'm kind of where you're at too. It's like, I'm aware of all this stuff, and I don't know that I'm proficient in any of this. It's, you know, when you're driving down that highway, you know, like, if we're headed someplace, I might be at mile marker 87 and somebody else may be at mile marker 47. It's just I've read a few more chapters, but that doesn't make James nor I, it doesn't make us proficient. It just makes us a little bit more proficient than we were, or a little bit more aware than we were. I'm just going to speak for you, but feel free to chime in. I don't want you to think that we're coming across like we're some kind of, you know, wild gurus and all of this, and that we're about to offer you some panacea that fixes every human on the planet, because it's not. This is just a real life understanding of human kinetics as we see it. And what we've seen over those years, I know James has seen it in his practice. James has seen it in his practice. There's too doggone many Jameses in this room, but is outcomes that have been pretty stellar, and they're worth sharing because it's just been hidden under a bush for so long, and I want to bring it out from under that bushel. He does too, and I know she does. So we wouldn't be in this room were it not for what Alice has put together. She's the one that says, no, we need to make people aware of this, and they need to know. And so she's making James get on a plane and dragging us here all the time and doing this work.
Well, this is actually really special that both of them are here, because even at PRI, it's either Mike or James. They don't get double dual unless they go for, when they finish with PRI and they want to really advance in integration, then they may happen to get in the fellowship program where both of them are in it together. And it's a really swanky fellowship program. So the fact that they're both here for us, this is like playground for us.
Well, it's fun for us, I can tell you. It's fun for us to be not at my house and not at his house, but just with, like when I heard Brenda speaking a minute ago, it got me thinking that, you know, everybody here is a human sitting at the table that has a hunger to learn and a hunger to collaborate with one another. And I just cannot feel better. It's like I want to build a campfire, get some marshmallows, and sing Kumbaya. You know, and we've only just gotten started. And I just love that environment.
I'll tell you guys, the integration hub for this is here in Houston, Texas. There's nothing like the interest that, and the kind of, I mean, each of you guys are amazing in your own right. And you're sitting here and we're collaborating. You're talking about the frontier of medicine. It is in this room, in this moment right now. For real. Nobody's talking about this and collaborating the way we are. We are the first.
I want to make an observation that
Yeah.
it's majority women that are open to this. And because the male dentist, until I worked for you, male dentists did not want to hear anything I learned at a continuing ed course. They didn't want to change the way they were doing things, and they were so tunnel visioned.
Like,
And-
PTs aren't any different. I mean, we're the worst of the worst. You know, how many PTs does it take to change a light bulb? Well, maybe 20 or 30. One holds the bulb while the rest kick the ladder out from under it. So that's just how we roll. And guys, I mean, physical therapy is predominated by women. Men are kind of catching up, but it's still predominantly female in the profession.
Really?
Yes, and the kicker is that, I mean, I don't know why women marry us. We're the worst. We don't want to learn anything. We think we know everything. I'm going to speak for all of us. Okay? But,
He does think you know different.
You're in this group, you know? So, I mean, we're here, and so we really have to, you know, whatever learning we've already achieved on our own. For guys, you know, we'll go. Well, you know, we're completely proficient in everything. That's just how we roll. We know it all. And so we have to unlearn everything we've learned just to open our brains up enough to hear something come in. But you're right. You're right about the woman thing.
Well, and I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, and going to courses, I mean, you know, for years, it was majority.
Yeah, you will be.
You will be, to be.
So
Exactly.
go ahead, Julie, what were you
There
just
would
saying?
be, you know, when you go to courses, and I mean, obviously, because I've had such a long career in going to college and continuing education, but you walk into meetings and it was all male dentists, and it was female hygienists. And so, you know, to see that switch and kind of have more males coming into the assisting and the hygiene side, and more women coming up into the dentist, doctor positions, and having, you know, just the collaboration that women can have with each other and communicate more so about these things, so that they can build good teams.
So leadership in all there.
Well, I
It's
think a
right
big
now.
part of why we're interested in this, because women are natural communicators
And nurturers.
and nurturers. And so we're going to see this more. And to be honest with you, in the work that we do, I've actually, at Pankey, I've met a lot of very, very highly evolved, emotionally intelligent men, tons of them. They're my mentors. But it really takes a love of people and the connection with people where, you know, because the work that we're doing, and a lot of you guys know pain patients, they're totally different. If you can't connect to their hopes, their dreams, their fears, and their pain, you can't help them. You've got to connect with them on that level before you earn the right to even touch them. And so what I love about working with Mike, and he doesn't even know he's highly evolved, but he is.
See?
But, you know, he has a way of caring and loving on people in just the right moment, you know. There's been people that have lost hope, or they'll come and they'll do things and then it didn't work out the way they do. He doesn't care. He puts everything aside and he'll tell me, hey, I don't care what you do, but I'm seeing that patient for 2 hours and make it happen because I need to spend time with this patient. And he would just stop and just be human and talk to them about what's going on, and they would share with him what's happening, and all of a sudden he gets a clue into their personal life, And he was like, wait a minute, you didn't tell me about that part. Because he takes himself out of the clinical setting, put himself in the human setting, figuring about this human being. Then he goes in and changes all the activities and exercises within the realm of this human being's life and realm and the activities that they do. And to me, that's what makes him successful, because I've gone to other posture restoration therapists that were trained by you guys. They were extraordinary, but what they, the one that I was talking about, in Austin, he's wonderful, but he missed that human connection. So, he knew I was a dentist, but Mike's the one who told me, who would go in and see, oh, there's your chair. This is how I want you to sit. So when you're numbing patients and you're doing this, have you tried this way and that way? So I'm doing different things to change my daily habits in the things I do, because he knows he has a little eye view of what my life is like between being a single mom with 2 kids and this and that. He'll make suggestions. So he really takes time to get to know patients. And yesterday I was talking about co-discovery. It's about finding teachable moments for the patients so that you can help instigate activities, because if this is going to be a neurological change for them that's impactful, you have to know about them. And as women, I think we have something that God gave us that's very powerful, and that's just, we're natural connectors, right? So, you want to get started?
Let's rock it.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is you're going to endure me running my mouth for a little while. And let me grab my clicker so I can advance this. You guys, the microphone I'm wearing is, obviously you already know, hooked up to that camera. And I've got kind of a loud voice. Do I need that other? I don't think I really don't think I need it. I think it would just kill you if I wore that thing. So
let us know if you can't hear.
What I want to first do is tell you that. So right now we're going to take a journey, and this is a deeper dive now into this understanding. So the issue, and Alice was warning me about this, and she said, Mike, the more comfortable they are in this process, the more they're going to learn. Now, what she was getting at is, you're about to start talking about human anatomy. The anatomy you're most comfortable with, let me presume to know this, is right in here. And this is the wheelhouse from which you live. And what we're going to do is, what I want you to do is just tether yourself to that mothership. So click onto that and then hang on. And then what we'll do is take a trip and go explore the rest, of outer space here, and take a deep dive into this machine. And from there we'll figure out more about what's going on. These are the objectives. I've got 2 pages of objectives here that I want you guys to pick up on. So I want to define this concept of postural restoration and then set it aside. So that you know from where we're coming. And then this term up here called respiratory neurodontics, and we're going to get into that, and that is the deep dive, respiratory neurodontics. The second thing is how posture does affect complex restorative care, because that's where the rubber meets the road. Third, we want to gain some basic diagnostic skills. In other words, I want you to be able to do some assessments in your office. And then a lot of the assessments you're going to do in the first few minutes when you're saying hi to the patient before they do anything else. We're going to look at human asymmetries, specifically these items, left rib flares in general, and these asymmetric facial and upper chest brachial presentations. And then something we're calling sagittal dynamics, things like forward head postures, and the effect on airway. And then this little thing called a military neck, which the two are almost synonymous, so forward head posture and a military neck, and who owns them. And then I'm going to move this chair out of the way too. And then to get a decent ability to identify these conditions and understand how to move into the complex dental care and feel comfortable doing it, and then gain insight into the process of integration. That's all of us working together. So I'll pop up a couple of slides just because I thought it was fun, so I stuck them in here. So there's James and Alice and I, looking cool. And this is us doing a bunch of weird stuff in the clinic. So I don't know how many times you guys have put a patient's leg on your shoulder, but most patients kind of know this test once they've been exposed to it. So I say, you know, it's the old foot on the shoulder test. And they're like, oh, yeah, that one. So we obsess about that test. It's called an adduction lift test. And but you have to see, I love this. You have to see both of these guys in their environment. So last spring, Alice came out with Guzman. And they came out to the house. This is where I live right here. And so Tammy, you know, this is Tammy's domain right here, and she lets me occupy it. And so Alice came down, and they decided to go. We were going to do some turkey hunting, and we were going after this one turkey, and we nicknamed him Hugh Hefner. Because he was hanging out in this one area, and he had so many hens around him, and he was a boss. And no matter how much these two hens tried to hook up with him, they could never really connect, and Hugh Hefner gave them the slip so bad. But it was pretty hilarious. I've got some good video of that, but I should have put it in this PowerPoint. But anyway, I just needed you to see Alice toting a shotgun with a camouflage head net ready to be pulled down over her face and hanging out. And then, of course, Tammy with blonde hair, which is cracking me up. That was her bad moment in life, she said. We all make bad decisions. That was Tammy's. So, what is postural restoration? Basically, if you were getting on an elevator and you wanted to have a chat with somebody about it and you wanted to give them the elevator speech, 3 things. Humans are asymmetrical and it matters. There are a bunch of chains of muscle that control your body in the upright position against gravity. They're on the left side and on the right side of your body. And they don't behave symmetrically. And then number 3, the diaphragm is king. And if we understand that no human is going to occupy a position that's uncomfortable. They're going to now I have to define comfort, right? So if I said, hey, Laura, come lay down on this table and I'm going to sit on your chest. How you doing? Is that comfortable for you? She's going to go, get off of me, I can't breathe. And she'll thrash about. So this is every one of your patients. They're all suffocating, every single one of them. So what they'll do is they'll assume a position that allows them to suffocate less. So you say, why are you sitting like that, Mrs. Jones?
Why are you saying everybody's suffocating?
I'm getting to it. Thank you for asking that. So I also begged Alice, I said, if I say something weird, stop me and back me up. So why are you sitting like that, Mrs. Jones? She says, well, I don't know. It's just the way I sit. It's just comfortable. The definition of that comfort would be that she can move air more reasonably in that position. Now, it's very subtle. If I shift my center of mass into my right hemisphere, I can breathe into my left hemisphere a little bit more comfortably than if I shift my center of mass into my left hemisphere and attempt to breathe into my right rib cage. This is just not as comfy. So, I won't go there. I'll just hang out here. I don't realize I'm doing it, but I do notice that when I'm in the dental chair, I come this way. Well, Mike, I'm right-handed. I appreciate that. Why are you right-handed? Well, because I have a right body. What do you mean by that? Well, I don't know. I just spend more time here. Well, congratulations. Most of humanity does. In fact, if you don't, you're not from here. Because every human, and that's the point of line number 1, humans are inherently asymmetrical. The left and right halves are different. Now, what we have learned over the years is that people figure out ways to cheat that posture. They'll cheat to get into that left hemisphere. Watch me. I'm in my right hemisphere walking toward you. Well, Mike, now you're in your left hemisphere. It looks to me like you did fine. Oh, but I didn't. And I must have done something phony or fake to get into that left hemisphere. Well, none of that means anything if we don't have objective measures. Yesterday I was saying something about that. What I said yesterday was, we can look at people and get an idea. I mean, I had a suspicion it was her left calf, but I don't know. Now, I leaned over to James and I said, she's probably a PEC, wouldn't you think? And he was kind of like, yeah, it probably is. So, that's just some, little local term that we're going to name this compensatory strategy that she adopted in order to fake getting into her left hemisphere. Because there's a lot of people who do that. So it wasn't weird clairvoyance, it's just what you see. Like if I walk up and I start talking to you and smiling, you're going to make judgments about the arrangement of my teeth in my skull that I wouldn't know to do.
2, div 1.
All of that jazz.
We do that stuff, they do that stuff.
Yeah, we're just doing the same thing. Yeah. But what we're really understanding is human movement in the entire system. And it just so happens that the system ends in teeth. And so the teeth are going to configure themselves based on the system. So PRI has a website. Look at, there's Guzman. So PRI has a website you can go to. If you were interested in taking classes in PRI, you just go to that website, you register, and and take a class or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6. So there's a bunch of those classes. James and I have taught every one of them. We no longer teach for PRI. This course isn't a PRI course, but I would be remiss if I didn't expose you to this, because the information there is extremely worthwhile and it'll make you more proficient at understanding human asymmetry. Our effort today is exposure and a bit of a deep dive as it relates to dentistry, because that's really where the rubber meets the road for these clinicians in the room, and how to integrate with one another. So James and I have our own individual consulting companies. And then we have this Applied Integration Consulting Organization. That's this logo. The logo is really like if you were driving down the interstate and you saw a sign on the road that said restaurants ahead. That's what that sign is, restaurants ahead. Now you can eat at Denny's or McDonald's or whatever. When you get to the bottom of the ramp, James Anderson, Mike Entrell, turn, which we don't care. But the point is, the sign is AIC. This AIA is our obsession. So it's this little tiny logo up here, Applied Integration Academy, is our obsession, and that is what we're growing. And I'll tell you more about that. You're already kind of hearing about it because Alice is as obsessed as we are about the formation of this academy. And it is fledgling right now, and we're really excited about that. Because we realize interdisciplinary integration must happen. And it starts here. If not now, when? If not us, who? So we figured we'd do it. So we started getting clever. I just think that's cool. Anyway, so let me go on. So there's James looking, like Christopher Walken, and Mike with a face for radio. So doesn't he though? I mean, he kind of does, right? I'm telling you, he does. Like somebody could go up and go, is that Christopher Walken? I'd go, yes, it is, but he's really not wanting to talk to people right now. Just leave him alone. Could we get his autograph? I'll let you get a picture in a minute. Let me talk to Mr. Walken and we'll find out.
Listen, you need to say that's Chris Walken's grandson or something. He's like...
Oh, that's true. He's got no... This is Christopher Walken's grandson, so please, if you don't mind. He'd like to enjoy dinner quietly this evening.
Or young son.
Yeah, his young son. So this is a new term. We all understand orthodontics, or we at least think we do. What I want you to appreciate is the neurology behind the movement of teeth. There is a group out there in the Netherlands that speaks to this concept of neurodontics. They don't understand the term respiratory because it's not there yet. So the concept of respiratory neurodontics is what we're going to define now. Now, you have to forgive me because in the U, I don't know where to stand, and I'm trying not to block anybody's view. So that's why I'm constantly on the move, Muriel. Sorry about that. All right. So anyway, if a clinician understands human kinetics, the effect of multiple systems on the human body, then management takes on a whole new look. James and I have spent, I cannot tell you, I did the math a little bit the other night, James. And that's why I wrote the word thousands. Because over the past, 18 or so years, teaching an average of 15 to 20 classes per year, with an average of about 20 to 50 people in the class, it starts to add up. And James has made huge inroads in professional athletics, seeing and teaching guys like us, just folks. Strength and conditioning specialists are huge into a desire to understand this material. Strength and conditioning specialists should be a dentist's referral source. What? I just want you to appreciate that these strength and conditioning specialists, they refer to themselves as muscleheads. Well, I'm just a musclehead in your class. Yeah, you're a musclehead with 75,000 followers on Instagram who listen and eat and sleep and breathe every word you say. And you need to be able to screen when someone's bite is getting in the way of your performance program that you're having them do. And we could give you anecdotal tales from every walk of sports and in the Department of Defense, because these folks are huge into this material and they're all craving dentists. So, but I would tell you this, the last thing in the world you want to be is a dentist for a professional sports team, because it's obnoxious and it gets old. So I'd contract to them. Don't sign on with them, speaking from experience. So we spend a lot of time in this world talking about pelvises and positions, and we're not going to get into pelvis stuff today. We'll briefly chat about it. We're gonna do a little bit of that here in a few minutes. But just understand, we spend a lot of time talking about this material to a lot of folks. We look at the academy, and along the way we realized we needed to connect the dots between these three S bones: the sacrum, the sternum, and the sphenoid. Those three unpaired bones have a relationship to one another, and the Institute, Posture Restoration Institute, obsesses on these three bones, because each one of these unpaired bones moves. Of the three, can you guess which one moves the most? We would think, maybe relatively it would be the sphenoid. But in degrees of movement, that sternum is the biggest player in the house, and he rules the world. He tells our brain where we are in space. But this guy moves. Kalachis and a bunch of other researchers back in the 70s started jabbing volunteer medical students with pins to assess how much it moved when they lifted their leg and moved around, and they realized that is a diarthrotic joint, and it moves. Because there was debate about it. There's still debate about this guy. There is a wrath of dentists at the American Equilibration Society who will insist that this thing is fused.
Name those bones, please.
This is the sacrum. This is the sternum. This is the sphenoid. And this is a genius. So anyway, I had the laser right on your chest, baby. So those bones are, the three S bones. The three S bones. I've got a sphenoid laying up here. I've got a cervical spine. I've got an occiput, and I've got two temporal bones that we're going to be looking at in a few minutes that I want you to have a handle on. So that's why they're sitting here, and I stole James's extra cervical spine from the clinic the other day. Respiratory neurodontics, I'm going to read, so forgive me. It's an expansion of the commonly appreciated relationship between facial development and the alignment of teeth, emphasizing that this relationship is dependent on balancing respiratory patterns and coordinating movement into one half of the body and then the other. I'll go on. The ability to successfully alternate into one half of the body and then the other refers to the uniform lateral shifting onto each heel, which is the same as saying each molar. Heels are molars. Each hip, each posterior mediastinum, this part of my back, each half of the neck, and each half of the posterior occlusal surface. So I can't be standing on my left leg if my right teeth are hitting. I can't be standing on my left leg if my right teeth are hitting. If I'm standing on my left leg, I'd better be able to make left occlusal contact, because the best and greatest proprioceptors in my body are my teeth. They tell me where I am in space. Do you know how frustrating that is for these 3 physical therapists? Damn it, that's a whole region of the body that we don't have a license to explore. Yet, when I'm trying to teach my post-stroke patient how to load through his left lower extremity, and he has no teeth, this is frustrating. Or he can't make contact on that side because of a bite distortion. Or, 75% of the human population chews their food on the right side. Do you think that's happenstance? No. They're doing that because they're right hemispheric. They're asymmetric. Humans are asymmetrical. We're going to dive into this. So, yes, sir.
I would add, Mike, you said you can't stand on your left side if you're feeling your right teeth more.
Uh-huh.
You might not be able, you can. People can do that, let's be clear. That occurs, that can occur, but you can't properly stand with your body properly positioned all along the left side the way that it should be if your occlusion isn't slightly biased toward the left in that pattern of being properly lined up over the left side. And
yes.
Neither the left or the right side are a problem. The problem is having the ability to get out of it safely and to go organize your body into the properly aligned other half. He's like puppet. He's great.
I'm Vanna White. I got this.
It's about, people do a lot of dysfunctional things. So as I listened to Mike, as I was imagining myself in your seat hearing that, saying, yeah, people can do that. I've seen it all the time. But they can't properly do it and properly organize their body to be organized from the foot to the tooth on the left like they should be, so they can transition out of that and make them, and then get over into the right half from foot to tooth like they should be, and be able to move and alternate and reciprocate. So we need that artistic transition from one side to the other. And the teeth are literally the stick and the spokes that can jam us into one side and never let us get properly onto the side we need to, so our hip and our pelvis and our foot and ankle doesn't compromise our left Achilles because of an inability to get over onto our left occlusal surface and then get off of it. So I'm just listening to Mike and
keep doing it, brother.
Keep
doing it.
Compliment what you're saying.
It seems like the key word is properly. So
Properly.
When you're not properly doing it, what's happening?
So if you are improperly loading into your left or your right hemisphere, damage starts happening. The first sign of damage is the report of discomfort. I hurt someplace. So the first thing that a clinician is going to do is start trying to figure out why that pain exists. Pain is just the orthopedic manifestation of a neuropulmonary dysfunction. I said that pretty well, right? Wouldn't you say? Pain is an orthopedic manifestation of a neuropulmonary dysfunction. For example, ouch, my shoulder hurts when I throw the ball with my kids. Oh, well, you've got a rotator cuff impingement. Let's give you a cortisone shot and have a nice day. Gosh, doc, thanks. That feels better for a little while. Because he was treating, the orthopedist was treating the orthopedic manifestation of a movement discord. There's a movement problem. So now if we analyze the movement problem, we're going to see a host of things that I'm about to outline. Because if I start in on the host of things right now, you're going to go, WTF, I didn't get any of that. So we're going to kind of keep the WTF to a minimum by explaining ahead of time. How was that? Was that?
Love it.
All right.
Can you repeat that again? Pain is
WTF. I love it. So which part?
the pulmonary manifestation of the pulmonary what?
Of a neuropulmonary dysfunction. The pain is an orthopedic manifestation of a neuropulmonary dysfunction. I'm kind of digging that, the way that came out of my mouth. I'm going to continue. When the human is able to access a full respiratory and movement profile on both sides of the body in a successful alternating fashion, then they are more likely to develop a resultant patent airway. Pause there for a moment. In other words, if I can move into both halves, I'm more likely to result in a normal functioning airway. A full midface, balanced occlusion, and a neck that's capable of movement. Well, I'm kind of grooving on that. Is there evidence to demonstrate when they're not? Ding, 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 yes. Likewise, each of these outcomes, in turn, allows the ongoing opportunity for a full respiratory and movement profile to be maintained on both sides of the body. So right now, what you might be picking up is the word posture doesn't mean sit up straight. That's grandma's posture. I mean, we can put the book on the head and learn how grandma taught us to walk, but that's not the good posture is bad. Ooh, in your face, right? So that's kind of an evocative thing to say. Good posture is bad. Now wait just a doggone minute. You mean you want me to slouch, Mike? No, bad posture is worse. But good posture is horrible. It's a toss-up, really. I just need neutral, comfortable posture. Positioning would be a better word, but it doesn't mean much if we say positioning something. R&D, respiratory neurodynamics, is a term that relates to the neurologically driven influence of breathing and the proprioceptive sense of occlusion. It's relating those two to craniofacial development and subsequent orientation of the occlusal scheme, and vice versa. Appreciating how craniofacial posture, I like that, craniofacial posture, and the proprioceptive sense of occlusion can both negatively and positively influence breathing and movement into both sides is at the heart of this interdisciplinary concept. All of a sudden, it kind of makes you go, ugh, that's a lot. Yeah, and you know, sadly, it gets worse before it gets better. So I'm just prepping you for that. I mean, God help you when James starts talking. Peripheral adjustments of appendages. God help you when James starts talking. That part. This part right here? Yeah. So let's see if we can kind of paraphrase it too. So appreciating how my craniofacial posture. How about now? Appreciating craniofacial posture and the proprioceptive sense of occlusion can both negatively and positively influence breathing. So my occlusion could positively influence my respiration. Well, that by itself might not quite fly with what we already and what you guys are already learning about airway. What we're learning right now, what is conventional wisdom or current wisdom, I guess that's the same thing, in airway management now is you take a CBCT, you look at the volume or diameter of this airway, AP and lateral, Get an idea how big the tube is, and then make the tube bigger. Get an idea about how big the vault is, meaning the mouth, and make the vault bigger. Now, that can positively affect people, meaning it can help them in a good way. But this is not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is if I believe that I am in my right hemisphere because my right teeth are meeting more than my left, that means I'm going to be only able to expand my left chest, regardless of what my airway patency is. I'm only going to expand my left chest, and now I'm going to go for a run. That means I'm running with one lung and one leg. It's kind of hard to run with a right leg and a left kickstand. So what I would want is for someone to understand that in order to be able to breathe mo better, wouldn't it be nice if I could borrow my right lung every now and then and breathe into it? Or if I thought about this chest cavity as something divided into quadrants, I'd like the upper half to expand as easily as the lower half, and the lateral side to expand as easily as the other lateral side, or the right back to expand as easily as the left back, or vice versa.
So this makes me think of what Anne was going through. After Invisalign, she felt like she couldn't run the same. And what I've noticed with Invisalign is when you're wearing it, and all the orthodontists, Angela, you can chime in on this. Oftentimes when you take them off Invisalign, we do get posterior, disocclusion for a little while, and then teeth will settle. But if they don't settle and you don't get solid occlusion on your molars after Invisalign, then you're not really running on your heels. It's going to cause you to increase your respiratory effort. So it's not in your head that you can't run as well. It has nothing to do with age. It could be because your molar occlusion changed on you.
And usually the overjet type, that type anterior coupling, you're not going to occlude more on the posterior. And so why is that? So a lot of times we'll retract the lower incisors to get better occlusion in the posterior.
Uh-huh.
And that's what prevents a lot of that settling in the posterior. And they used to say, like years ago, well, it's the aligner thickness of the trays, and that's separating the occlusion in the posterior.
I just want to make sure that it's heard of.
But I feel like it's the anterior tight coupling that prevents the posterior occlusion. Yeah.
Yes. But we also know that if there's excessive anterior contact, there's a reduction of cervical lordosis, which means the rib cage is going up. So if we can get the rib cage to descend, we establish the lordosis and then make posterior contact. What I'm saying is, hang on, James. I'm saying it again. So I'm going to demo it as I'm saying it. So if there's excessive, what? Oh. If there's excessive anterior contact, and a loss of posterior coupling, we're losing a cervical lordosis. The lordosis is now becoming more straight. I'm getting a straighter neck. If I do this, my front teeth are going to hit just by doing this right now. So my rib cage went up to do that. If I can take a rib cage down, I establish a cervical lordosis and make posterior contact. If we all look up, our back teeth are going to hit most of the time. Well, why is that? I kind of faked a cervical lordosis. Well, I can create the same lordosis by dropping my rib cage. Nobody drops both rib cages at the same time. We do it on one side. Now I've got right contact. We do it on the other side. Now I've got left contact, provided I can establish a cervical lordosis. But if I can't establish the cervical lordosis, then I can't truly occupy either hemisphere because the neck said, no, sir, we're not letting you do that. How was that? Beautiful. Did I look good while I was doing it? That's all I want to know.
Good angle.
It'd be better if I turned my back. All right, go ahead, James.
I was going to use Mike's example when he said you're running with one leg and one lung. Did you guys catch that and pick that up? What are you going to do if you start running? You say, I'm going to start running or tax this system. You've got to get air into a system that is dying for air. So you're going to raise the front of your rib cage and shove your thorax forward.
Losing your cervical lordosis.
And now you have to bring your head forward just to see the horizon. You've flattened your neck, compromised your airway, changed your occlusion just to go for a jog because your one leg, one lung locked posturing doesn't allow you to do anything but throw your cage forward and have to go a forward head angle and neck alignment, which has a direct impact on occlusion. And now we can chase the occlusion or redirect it, or we can put the body where it belongs to bring the body to the occlusion that you seek. But it has everything to do with this one lung, one leg phenomena, and you're trying to live your life with one lung and one leg. And you can only do that to a point, and then things start to happen. And then they break down. Now there's orthopedic issues on the table, but they were never orthopedic issues. They were always one lung, one leg, and trying to stay alive breathing issues, if
And
that
some
makes
people
sense.
don't even go for the run.
No, they just go for
They're just hanging out. They just want to go to work, come home, beat the kids, and go to bed. And that's it. Do it in the light, James. Do it in the light. Come to the light.
I look better about 20 feet away and dim light.
Now, easy. You got a short leash here. Don't be pacing around. I got to follow you.
Easy. All I was saying is Mike's demonstration of having a stuck body pattern on one side when you can never get your body organized to the other side is effectually being one leg dominant. And we say one leg dominant. You watch them walk, they have two legs, but they're always organized and lined up to have good biomechanical posturing and alignment on the one side. And so every time they're on this side, it's just not right. And it ends up being some kind of orthopedic risky phenomena. So they got one leg, and they're rotated and lateralized to one side. And as their body turns back and opens up the entire opposite half of their rib cage and lung, now they have a left lung, but they're compromised in the right lung. So with a left lung and a right leg, you're going to get to a point where you need more and more air. So you're going to draw your rib cage forward to get that air, and it's going to be drawn forward and up more on the left, which may visually, but they can hide this, may visually drop a left shoulder.
Right shoulder.
Right shoulder, yeah.
That shoulder.
And so now I'm drawing up here, and what am I going to do with my head and neck? I have got to bring my head forward, and I've got to flex my neck or flatten the neck that should normally be lordotic, which compromises my ability to occlude posteriorly because I'm just trying to survive. I'm trying to get air in this system. And so what Mike and I do is our expertise is muscle inhibition. Chains of muscle that lock me into a pattern that isn't bad unless I can't get out of it. Now, when I can't get out of it, somebody needs to come in there with this art of inhibition to shut off those chains that limit my ability to have a left leg and a right lung. And really what Mike and I do in our expertise is to say, hey, your brain needs to appreciate and understand that you have a left leg and a right leg, and you have a right lung and a left lung. And your brain needs to appreciate that your occlusal sense on each side should be correlating well with that, so it in fact orchestrates that. But when it orchestrates something different, we're stuck as physical therapists. We're like, we know what to do with this. We know where to go with this. But neurologically, this occlusal sense is overriding everything and our ability to get alternation and reciprocation back and forth.
How strong is that in dictating what happens to the body, our occlusion?
It's the beast in the room.
High level. It's the top of the
It's
chain.
the beast in the room. It's super strong. The best analogy I have is if there's a hair under my big toe in my shoe, whatever. Everybody in here's got a ton of dog hair in their shoes now. But put one dog hair in your mouth. We're going to know it. Put a piece of dental floss and break it off between your teeth. It's power. You guys are the power holders. And so that's the big deal. That's how powerful it is. That's how strong it is. I'll continue.
Okay, the pressure's on.
I actually tell my patients whenever we're working on their, like if we have to adjust their bite, I tell them, I'm like, have you ever had a hair stuck in your mouth? I tell my patients, I said, have you ever had a hair stuck in your mouth? And, they'll go, most of them say yes. And I'm like, okay, do you know how crazy that drove you in the 30 seconds it was stuck in there? Try to imagine that for days or weeks.
Yeah.
Because that's how sensitive we are. And I try explaining that to them, and they're like, oh, because I tell them, I'm like, in the bite, if it's not absolutely freaking perfect, it ain't right. It's got to be dead on, because our mouths can tell microns.
Ding, ding, ding. Throughout this, I'm going to pop up a few of these references that I think are fun. This Postural Stability, Neck Proprioception, and Tension in the Neck is a nice article about peripheral adjustment of appendages are affected by cervical spine stimulus. And in this study, they kind of vibrated the neck and saw changes in peripheral posture. And what I'm getting at is the ultimate neck vibrator in this case is occlusion. It's a huge neck vibrator. So it has been shown, I'm still on this R&D obsession, respiratory neurodontics. It has been shown that a regimen of integrating postural therapy, postural dentistry, postural vision. Alice mentioned Dr. Heidi Wise, who is an expert in her field at helping people develop, listen to what I'm about to say because this is going to bother you deeply, at helping people develop patent airways through vision. Right? Isn't that upsetting? So, how does she develop patent airways through vision? Because she's helping people understand. I said a while ago, right occlusion can mean right stance. Left occlusion can mean left stance. What if your vision is still in the right hemisphere while you're trying to get in the left? Now occlusion can get trump carded by vision. Now Heidi Wise will tell you, get their mouth stable before I even show up to help anybody with their vision. Yes, ma'am. Heidivise. Wise. OD. She'll be coming here. We're lining up vision patients right now because I got her to come here for this course. I can't be doing what I've been doing for the last couple of years down here in Houston and not start plucking out patients who are vision patients. Everybody in here is a vision patient, and if anybody in here is wearing progressive lenses, you're a vision patient. The question is, do those progressive lenses have enough negative effect to constitute Heidi Wise coming down, or can we work with what you have? So everybody's a vision patient. Everybody in here has had a stroke. Whoa, that's evocative. So what I mean by that is our vision is dominant from the right periphery. We have poor left peripheral vision sense, and we have dominant right peripheral vision sense according to the research. Now, I wish I would have popped that research up. I didn't know that I was going to be saying this. But the research shows us this. So it also means that it's because we are asymmetric creatures. There's a wonderful book by a guy named Ramachandran. It's called The Telltale Brain. I love reading this guy's work, and he does some really nifty stuff with tricking brains to help people with phantom limb pain and this kind of thing, using mirrors, half mirrors. You put it between a person's leg because his right amputated leg hurts so bad. So you give him a fake right amputated leg. Now he's grown a new leg because he sees it in the mirror. Move this leg and scratch it. Oh, that feels so good on my right leg. They don't have a right leg, but their brain still believes they do. The power of this neurology is huge. All brains are scoliotic. We've got something called Yakovlevian torque, which means our brain is twisted in our skull. The scoliosis doesn't stop at the spine. It goes through the mouth, onto the tongue, and into the brain, and every bone in between. The reason I'm bringing this up is because Heidi Wise, the neurooptometrist, spelled W-I-S-E, is going to tell you that in order to help a person get into their left hemisphere, I may need to bias their visual acuity to allow them to arrive in the left hemisphere. And in so doing, the patient's headache goes away. Wow, the headache was because I couldn't get into my left hemisphere? Yes. Kind of cool. So, continuing. Postural vision, osteopathy, myofunctional airway therapy is a must. Is currently the most comprehensive and most effective mechanism, because if you do all of these in isolation, it's great. Because, you know, every one of us is rocking the world here with what we do already. But if we understand that together as a team we can do so much more, we're going to help these airway challenged patients. And occlusally challenged. Other protocols that are huge. These could all be on the front page, but I didn't have enough room on one slide. So, orthodontics, airway-focused surgeries, sleep therapy, all of these professions, all of these guys play together. There are more. certified strength and conditioning specialists, the front line, the guys that are the muscle heads. There's a muscle head certified strength and conditioning specialist and athletic trainer in every professional sports organization, and they're running the show. Accessing those guys, which James does all the time, accessing those guys and helping them understand these concepts is huge, because immediately they're calling you up. They're saying, I got somebody, I don't know what their deal is, but I know I need some help. And you know, if you've spoken to 2,000 and you're getting one a week from 2,000 people, you get a lot of referrals. So you end up having the ability to help a lot of people. Okay. Cranial strains can alter occlusion. We're going to talk about cranial strain patterns now. So you can read that, but what I want to tell you about cranial strain patterns, and you're going to see some images and some video here in just a minute. The reason why we're talking about these cranial strain patterns is because the cranium itself is either the first stop, I was going to say the last stop. The cranium itself is the last stop, but it could be the first stop, toward malocclusions. And it's the last stop of a body occupying a singular hemisphere and struggling to occupy the opposite hemisphere. So, in other words, in short, Mom was right, honey. If you make that face long enough, it's going to stick like that. So what you're seeing are cranial strain patterns of all of us making that face long enough. What's the face? This face that James described a moment ago. One leg and a kickstand on the other, one lung that only breathes for you. One neck that bends left and one neck that rotates left. So we're going to dive into this, and we're going to go. This is where you're going to get uncomfortable in these next series of slides, because they're going to dissect from the floor, from your toes to your nose, the origins of cranial strain patterns and malocclusions from our perspective. Okay. So there's a descending and ascending influence. Cranial strains and bite distortions are the primary drivers of descending pattern influence. By the way, dentists are the best influencers of the OA and AA joint. The best. Better than your chiro. Craniosacral biodynamics talks about the primal midline and all of this. Franklin Sills points out that if I'm going to open and close at this joint, I have to have support at the OA. Without OA support, I don't open and close properly here. Well, how do I get OA support? Well, first thing you do is you have to position the OA joint well. That can come through an exhale to establish the cervical lordosis, or it can come through built occlusion. Put a splint in their mouth. Do I need to back up? Okay. The research shows that 72% of cranial strain patterns are comprised of side bendings and torsions. I'm going to define those so that you're clear on that. Of the side bending patterns, the left side bend is the most prevalent, and the most prevalent of the torsions is the right torsion. This is by a study from Timoshkin and Sandhouse. And Ms. Timoshkin kind of spent a lot of time obsessing on this. When you read this article, it'll make you crazy. And so literally James and I are in the middle of re-dissecting this article, because we're seeing things in the clinic that are causing us to really want to know more about this. And we're going to be adding to this body of knowledge, I know, coming soon to a theater near you. This is consistent with the prevalence of research that illustrates that most humans have orthopedic, neurologic, and respiratory asymmetries that cause them to shift primarily into the right hemisphere or lateralize to the right. Now, most people tend to load on the right leg. That doesn't mean that they're great right standers. It just means they're more accustomed to loading on this leg than this leg. Having said that, there are plenty of humans who are very comfortable loading on this leg, and they occupy a place in our minds because we consider them even more problematic. But wait, Mike, they're going to the left. Yeah, but they're not doing it the right way. So they've layered a new compensatory strategy on their compensatory strategies that creates even bigger issues. We see it a lot in repetitive athletes.
Term side bend or torsion before? Who here has not?
Cranial strain patterns. Side bend torsion, you're a left side bend rotation.
Right now or always?
Right now. Always. That is the name.
Term with side bend or torsion means?
Yeah. So in fact, I've got pictures in just a second that are going to laymanify it big time. So when you were delivering your history, I'm leaning over to James going, I love this girl because this is why you're going to be one of our patients today in our demo. Because your left side bending rotation is something you already know about. You just didn't know it had a name. I have this facial asymmetry. And only a nerd notices it because otherwise you're a beautiful woman. But a nerd is going to look at you and go, ooh, I love that face. Because, they're all up in it. And they're going, I'm digging this larger right mandible, and the mandible tracking to the left, lower left ear, lower left eye orbit. Say again?
How do you notice this? So, anyway.
Because it's our life, right? It's our life. So.
It's just like how we know when a patient speaks that they're tongue-tied.
Yeah.
We hear it, nobody else hears it.
Yeah, it's that. So the left cranial side bend, and I'm just going to squat to get out of the way. The left cranial side bend is the most common strain, and it's a natural outcome of a right lateralized human. So what I've just said here, you're kind of comfortable with because we've been discussing this right lateralization a moment ago. We
want everybody to be this and then be able to get out of it. And when they can't get out of it, then they get the name having this. But everybody should have half of this with half of their respirations and half of their movements and half of their life.
Love it.
But when you get sticky in it, then you get named, you're like, oh, you're stuck in it. Now I'm going to call you that. You're sticky. But it's not a bad thing.
It's just a
It's
thing.
only bad because you're stuck in it. Patterns aren't bad until they're bad because they're sticky and they limit access to the other half or the front, back, opposite side, wherever you cannot get to because of that stickiness. So we don't want to give you the impression like, oh no, I hope I don't have any of this. I hope you have lots of this. But then I hope you can dance in and dance out. But when you can't dance out, now you're stuck and we need to intervene. Just so that everybody's clear and not going like, oh no, I've got a left cranial side bend. I hope you do.
And your brain needs to be able to believe you can get out of this. A right cranial torsion is a less common strain, at least we think. Now, when you read Timishkin and Sandhouse, they're going to say the right cranial torsion is a more prevalent strain than a left side bend, but really they go together. So a right torsion coupled with a left cranial side bend rotation is the most common presentation.
What does that mean, frontal plane twist?
All right, so let me read the rest of it and then we'll talk about it. The less common strain that adds a frontal plane twist at the sphenobasilar synchondrosis and occurs within the skull more so than at the neck. It occurs on top of the standard left cranial side bend strain, and it can distort cranial and oral cavity findings when compared to the left side. So I'm going to show you with this model. So I'm going to put this on and use. I sure can. If I stand back there too long, I'll be in the dark, so it's like I'm trying to, I'm going to do this from here. Yeah, flip the light on, right. Because the slide isn't necessary right now. Somebody's thinking in the room. Thanks, Daff. So what I have in my hands, I have an occiput, base of my skull. This is the foramen magnum. My finger is going through. And I'm going to walk around and give you a close-up view in a moment. I'm just backing up to globally speak about this. And I have a video on this in a moment. And then I've got the sphenoid bone, which is sitting behind my eyes right here in the middle of my head. The SBS is where the occiput and the sphenoid meet. So that joint is the sphenobasilar synchondrosis. Movement, a lot of movement occurs in the SBS from birth all the way up to 26 years of age. So the sphenobasilar synchondrosis doesn't fuse until age 26 or thereabouts. But even when it's fused, it still strains into flexion and extension. Now, remember, if I hold my head sideways to you, you're looking at the profile of this. Does that make sense? Everybody kind of oriented? If I move this in this plane, this is sagittal movement. I'm moving sagittally. I'm moving these two bones sagittally in opposition to one another. If I face you with this and I tip both these bones right or left, that's frontal plane movement, frontal plane, frontal plane. And then I'm going to let you look at it from the top. If I do this, that's transverse plane movement. Clearly, none of these bones move this much. If they did, you'd be in the ER. So it's a strain. If I walk up to Savannah and put a strain on her skull, it'd be easy to do. I can walk up to Savannah and go, "Hi, I'm inducing a cranial strain on you right now." She'll go, "Yeah, get your hands off my head." All I did was just squeeze a little bit, and I'm putting a strain. They did some nifty research with NASA, and they measured strain patterns on astronauts in space. Well, you don't have to go to space to do it. Just watch the potato chip bag as you're flying at 30,000 feet. Exactly. You know, I hate opening those coffee creamers. Because you know, down on the ground, you just open it. At 30,000 feet, you got to get out of the way and shoot the guy behind you. So that expansion occurs. Cranial bones expand and contract, and they strain. Let me get this guy in the right position. They strain in the transverse plane, in the frontal plane. See how I'm moving them opposite? And in the sagittal plane, side view. These bones strain, and every single bone that's attached to them, which is the rest of your skull, including the maxilla. Whoa. So, frontal plane, I say here that the torsion component is a frontal plane addition. You're going to see in a video in a few minutes that this left cranial side bend rotation is really these two bones moving together to the left with a little bit of a transverse plane this. When we add in the torsional component, there's a frontal plane, watch the occiput, twist in the frontal plane, and it adds a new strain. And patients' headaches change. Instead of having classic suboccipital headaches, consistent with the left side bend and torsions, they'll start adding parietal stuff. Not necessarily transtemporal. Transtemporals and behind the eye could still be a left side bend. But when they start getting upper stuff like this, it's a key that says, probably a torsion on top of that. Interesting. So that's what I mean by frontal plane. Let's press on. So remember, we're doing a deep dive here. So we're going to wind up at feet in just a few minutes. But how are we doing right now? Because this right now may be taking you off the mothership. So just, or at least straining your cranial bones. Right? Right, yeah, hey. We're twisting this. So the left cranial side bend, this is lifted from James and Strocon, who've done a lot of obsessive work on on cranial strain patterns. So what James and Strocon are doing is dramatizing movement so that it's visible. No bones move this much. As I said, if they did, you'd be in the ER. So what I want you to appreciate is what's happening. We're looking from the top of the head here. So that arrow is a transverse plane movement. Does that make sense? That arrow is a transverse plane movement. The sphenoid, here's the sphenobasilar synchondrosis. The sphenoid here is moving or rotating to the right. That maxilla is rotating to the right. So this is the sphenoid moving right and the maxilla moving right. What that does is causes the mandible to be obligated to rotate left. But Mike, how is it that the mandible is obligated to rotate left? And this is the bite distortion that is standard for this pattern. So you can see that this imagery is dramatized. The bite distortion is more real. This is how subtle the strain is. Does that make sense as I'm saying that? You know what I mean? Okay. So when we're looking at this,
That's the left side of the body,
left side of the body,
and this is the right.
right side of the body, left side of the body, right side of the body. My bad.
Seeing it the other way around, so this is actually different.
Mm-hmm. And you can blame it on osteopaths. Because osteopaths are in the middle of a battle with regard to naming the nomenclature of strain patterns. Because some people want to call it a this and other people want to call it a that. So I don't care what you call it. You can call it the man on the moon syndrome for all I care. As long as we understand that there's twist and torque that's occurring in these bones. The reason why this mandible is obligated to go left is because of what this guy's attached to. What sits right here? If you say temporal bone, you're right. And there's one right here. Oh, wait, there it is right there. Sorry. Here's that temporal bone here. Here's the temporal bone here. The fossa that Pete Dawson needs to take into account is on the move, just like Voldemort. He's on the move. These two temporal bones, I had to get a Hogwarts reference in there, you know what I'm saying? So, these two temporal bones are sitting here in my skull, and they contain the two sockets that this mandible arrives in. If I move these temporal bones, these two condyles must follow. And in most people, this mandible is tracking left to chase these two sockets. That is until the person can successfully arrive on their left leg, and now the mandible is free to go to the right, and the temporal bones can rotate in the opposite direction, and I can go right.
So CR is dictated by the temporal bone, not
Which is dictated by a state of respiration. Say that again. CR is dictated by the
temporal bone, not necessarily the condyle. And that temporal bone can be dictated by ribcage position. So changing your ribcage position can change CR.
changing the rib cage position can change bites. Hence, neurologically, I understand now that I'm in a different position, and I confirm it with respiration. So I wind up with respiratory neurodontic change, hence the name. But we'll continue. I explained this already, so I'm going to skip this slide.
No, don't skip it.
All right, I won't skip it.
Sorry, I'm nerding out over cases.
So the blue max is going along with the sphenoid. The red mandible is following the temporal bones, and the occiput is rotating in the transverse plane to the left. Osteopaths call this, just to mess with you a little bit, make you uncomfortable. Osteopaths call that occipital on the right side, occipital ER, occipital IR. The sphenoid right wing, ER, sphenoid left wing, IR. Do you see how messed up that is? ER from what? External rotation from what? From midline. So this thing's rotating externally away from midline, that thing.
So where would the temporal bone be? Externally rotated on that side?
On the left side. But you're going, how in the world is the temporal bone rotated out on the left side?
So that's when you see the ear coming out.
You see the ear out because the squamous, the top of the temporal bone on the left side is doing three movements, triplanar. It's moving anteriorly, which drives the socket back toward the wall behind me, frontal plane tipping out, and then transverse plane externally rotating. So it's doing three movements. If I did it with my hands, I'm holding two Can't see you. Had it on the other side. Like this, you can't see that? Hang on, let me come back and I'll show you here. Let me fix my microphone. So, the temporal bone on the left and on the right. These temporal bones are doing this. On the right side, it's coming back and in. On the left side, it's coming forward and out. There's the external rotation that's trying to describe in a flat picture. The orientation of the two sockets that the mandible sits in are changing. Watch these both as I do the movement again. Boom, boom. So this socket is now aimed at me, and this socket is aimed at you, if I dramatize the movement. That means my condyles must do this. Boom. Make sense?
That's why the jaw looks.
That's why in most left side bend rotations, the mandible is obligated to go to the left. That's why you see people.
When you guys are examining patients like this, I find the best position is not upward. The best position is when you have the patient laying down and you're looking from head down.
You're going to see some of those. We've got some in a PowerPoint. You'll see some of those. Because I want you to be observers. I just want you to, you know how this is. It's like yellow VWs, man. They're everywhere until you pay attention. Then you see them. They're all over the place.
Mike, forgive me. I have a question before you move forward. And
Please.
First of all, I want to apologize. I did have a doctor's appointment that I could not change. This is why I'm late. But I walked in when you were saying that the bones don't, and please forgive me if I didn't get it exactly clear, but if they
You're already
don't-
forgiven.
They don't completely fuse and
Yeah,
never really be till about 26, right?
Yes.
So we have been taught that it happened beforehand. So my question is, does that mean that we still have that we actually have a bigger window for palatal expansion?
From the day you arrive till the day you die.
So it doesn't have to be a surgical situation
Nope.
if we do the expansion process.
Ask the myofunctional therapists in the room. Because what a myofunctional therapist will tell you, even if they don't know it, they're going to tell you if that tongue is in the right place, palates are capable of respiration. Palates are capable of respiration. The tongue affords palatal movement and cranial movement. Think about what you learned about mid-face development at, in dental school. Were you about to say something? Neela? Go for it.
No, you go ahead. Yours is more valuable. Go ahead. I want to.
I don't know about that. But as if a kid is a mouth breather, what happens to mid-face development? Yeah, it doesn't, right? Who develops the mid-face? The tongue. Because of what his interaction with the palate is. Why would anybody who has a tongue deficiency, in meaning, how about just, we'll call it a misbehaving tongue, because it may not necessarily be a tongue tie. It may be a behavioral tongue tie. So now we're going to question, and we have answers, about why that tongue is misbehaving. But that tongue is affording this palatal dissension and mid-face development. It is the glute max of the face. Glute maxes afford this pelvis movement and coordination for pelvic diaphragm ascension and descension and pelvis full development. It's glute max. And glute max controls the pelvic diaphragm. Obliques control the respiratory diaphragm. And this glute max controls this diaphragm. That is just the way it is. And the mandibular diaphragm is the support system for this tongue. And the mandibular diaphragm is firing more than it should on someone with a straight neck, an elevated chest, and a forward rotated pelvis. So the idea is to control that position and teach that person how to alternate it. We come back to that. So I just gave you a long-winded answer to that question. But the bottom line is these bones are always capable of movement. I've got a slide in another PowerPoint, and it shows two palatal vaults of the same person, 4 years different, grown man. And in the first image, he's got a fairly normal palatal vault with slight internal rotation of his left palate. You may not know what I'm talking about right now when I say that, but you will. In the second image, he's got massive internal rotation of the right palate. He's a grown man, 4 years difference. And he's on CPAP at that point. So it's like, how in the world could we see such huge internal rotation of bone when bone doesn't move? How indeed?
I can speak about this because they work with tongues all day long. I mean, how often do you hear patients say they're breathing differently the minute their tongue goes up? It's astonishing. Share that, because some of us don't know.
I mean, it really is. It's unbelievable to me. It's nothing that I don't discuss this with the patients preemptively. Typically, I don't try to plant something in their minds because I want their experience to be their experience.
Non-biased.
Right. So, but many, especially adult patients, because they're kind of more in tune and they've been living with these issues for so long that it's such a dramatic difference in their being that they, it's unbelievable to
They're
them.
mouth breathers and they don't even know it.
Yeah. But almost immediately after, and it blows me away as well. They feel like they can breathe. Just,
I love that.
and it's crazy. But I've seen it time and time again. So
What do you think it was when they're reporting?
So I am still trying to understand the anatomy and physiology behind it, because to me, I'm thinking, okay, the hyoid bone is dropping, the tongue is lifting, it's coming, it's being brought out of the, the oropharynx. It's possibly stimulating autonomic nervous system, vagus nerve, a whole lot of things that I don't know anything about.
But it's already forcing nasal breathing with your tongue up. So then
It's improving the ability
Yeah.
for the nasal airflow. But, again, that's more of what I want to understand.
This so excites me. I can't wait to get more into it right now.
So we're seeing stuff, we just don't know how it's happening, and we're like, kudos to us, but we don't know how it's happening, right?
Okay.
Same, right? I've even had kids as young as 14 feel release of tension and feel like they're lighter. Justin could feel his toes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And
You
he's
felt his
like,
toes?
I can feel my toes. And I'm like,
And he had a headache right here for 5 years of his life. It's a 21-year-old, from 16 years old to 21. He's had a headache right here every single day that has never, no matter what kind of medication. The minute that,
we
well, you clip the tongue, but it won't go up because his respiration was still having an issue.
But
And
even
so,
after that one, he was still
yeah, but the
reactive
day
with-
that I put him on the ALF, stuck the ALF in, I wish y'all were there. Did we record that? That he was like, I don't know where I'm at. I
He was
can't
unstable.
stand. He couldn't stand.
Give me instability or give me death, because if we have someone
He was
unstable,
fine when he
we can
sat
build a
down
program
and we
off of
gave
that.
him an ALF. All of a sudden, he was like, "Oh my gosh!" Even though after the tongue clipping, it was helpful. But on the day we delivered the ALF, it was even more pronounced, because he said, and the first thing he said is, "Oh my gosh, this pain I've had is 100% gone in an instant." I'm talking 3 seconds. And then we said, "Okay, stand up." The minute he stood up, though, his body just shrunk. He goes, I can't stand. He's freaking out and panicking. And so these guys put him down. Thank God James were you there?
No, James was there when you
was
delivered the
there that
ALF.
day. He was like, "Nope, I need you to lay down, assume position, and help him find his heels on the wall." So he had to connect the tongue neurologically, the new dissension of the maxilla, if you want to call it that, the floor of the sinus, and he had to help his brain connect that with the heels. The minute he did, and he helped him breathe, just all he did was put his heels against the wall. What else did you do? You held his occipitus.
So Justin, is a great kid, isn't he?
Yeah.
21.
Yeah, he's early 20s. I think he wants to go to medical school. And so, I suspected when we were going to deliver that ALF that there was going to potential to be a lack of grounding sense. They're going to cover that today. What does this grounding sense mean for my dental patient? What does grounding mean? Well, they're going to cover that, and that's going to be a big aha moment, I think. But Justin did not have any grounding sense, any sense of where he was. So when we put an ALF in, the tongue went up and palatal dissension and cranial bone moves and de-straining of a pattern. Mr. Cantrell just went over what strain patterns were. We put the ALF in, that de-strains a pattern. What does that do to you neurologically? So so Justin's all over the place. So we had him lie down. Yeah. Why would he have a headache if you just de-strained him, right? So we have him lie down, and I think we just gave him a little bit of pressure on the bregma, the top of the skull, to give him a grounding sense, to just get his body to say, okay, let me see where I'm at for a second, right? And to watch him ambulate. So at the dental office, Dr. Lamb's dental office, we actually have a hallway that's dedicated to gait assessment. Gait assessment is let me see somebody walk. So as we do gait assessment down this dedicated the hallway there, we see a change in his pattern, gait change with an ALF. Tell me how powerful occlusion is with that instance right there. That was a beautiful situation. So essentially, when he came in we saw him walk. There's a general term called antalgic. It doesn't tell you what's going on. It says something's messed up here. Antalgic gait pattern. So we put it in. Initially, he's walking. He's trying to at least find his sense of grounding. So we put it in. He's like, whoa. Give him some sense of stability. Watch him ambulate again. Then you start to see movement in a rib cage. What does that mean? Why do I want to see it? Why do we even want to see movement in a rib cage? We want to see movement in a rib cage because it's respiration. If you don't have movement here, you don't have movement here. Then you don't have equal balance here. It's a beautiful opportunity.
Mike, I have something to ask and possibly to add, because I literally, on my way over here, got a text message from Palmy, my sister, who's also a dentist. And, I've been going through some serious health issues. You're well aware of them. And now my sister's concerned. So she's like, hey, I'm worried. And she's like, have you had COVID? And I'm like, no. And she's like, well, I'm only asking this because we're now getting reports not only from patients, but also doctors that are seeing the COVID patients, that they are having neurological issues. And I'm just sitting here going, okay, are those neurological? My daughter has a post-COVID headache that she hasn't been able to get rid of for a year and a half. Are these neurological issues coming because there's an issue with the respiratory system after the bronchial problems with COVID?
I think some of it is yes.
Okay.
I think absolutely. I've got some post-COVID patients. I've got one who's just a neurologic nightmare, and nothing I'm doing is working. Just so you know, nothing I'm doing is working. I'm beating my head against a wall with her, and I'm not sure how to approach her. Do what? No, it's not you. No. We barely started with you. I'm excited about you. All right, I'll keep going. Okay. So now we're looking at it. We're zooming in from this image. We're just focusing on it here to talk about what the blue maxillary teeth are doing as they're twisting to the right to follow the sphenoid. And twisting is my words. And the red mandibular teeth twisting to the left to follow the temporal bone. So we've got one.
The left is actually the right, and the right's the left for us.
Yes, that arrow represents these red mandibular teeth traveling to the left. Here's the left side of the body.
So we're looking from the chin up, guys. Okay? Chin up position, not head down. I know the osteopaths.
No, I thought it was head down.
Things opposite from how we visually see things on the screen.
No, it's head down.
That's head down.
It's head down, Alice.
So left.
Vertex view.
That's
There's
right.
left.
I see it. Left is on the actual left.
Left is on the left, right is on the right. Golden. All right, so yeah, and blue is following the sphenoid, red is following the mandible. All right, so now we're going to try to summarize that. So forgive this video. Just bear with the video. Here we go.
Posterior view of an occiput, side view. As you can see, my fingers on the neck. Left lateral flexion of a neck raises the right wing of the sphenoid. Do you see that? Cut.
All right, I'm going to play it again. Sam. Let you see it a couple of times, and then I'm going to go to the next. There's 3 videos in series.
Posterior view of an occiput, side view. As you can see, my fingers on the neck. Left lateral flexion of a neck raises the right wing of the sphenoid. Do you see that? Cut.
Okay, so I just dragged the neck into the game. So we're about to start to depart the skull and travel down to the cause of strain patterns.
Mike, tell them why the neck does that.
That's what we're going to be getting into. I'm going to left laterally flex my neck. Are you ready? Here I go. Well, that was great, Mike. You did a good job. I'm going to do it again. Now I'm going to do it a different way. You ready? I just left laterally flexed my neck about 5 to 15 degrees. I'm going to leave my neck here, and I'm going to shift my center of mass into the other hemisphere and not move my neck. Are you ready? Now you can see how dramatically my neck has shifted or laterally flexed to the left. I'm going to go back. It fits here. I look cool. But when I go over there, you can see how dramatically this neck is left laterally flexed. It's also left rotated. It's just harder to see, but my nose is kind of over yonder. But when I go back to here, my nose is straight ahead. So I've actually left laterally flexed and left rotated. That's going to turn this occiput in the transverse plane that way, which is a left rotation of my occiput. Does that make sense? Like you saw in the vertex view. So left lateral flexion of a neck is brought to you by the body and a host of other sponsors. So now we're going to go further.
In a left lateral flexion of the cervical spine, the right first cervical vertebrae goes up into the occipital condyle. Cut. In a left lateral flexion of the cervical spine, the right first cervical vertebrae goes up into the occipital condyle. Cut.
Got it? You want one more replay? Are we good?
Yeah, play it again.
Okay. I knew Alice
In a
would say
left
yeah.
lateral flexion of the cervical spine, the right first cervical vertebrae goes up into the occipital condyle. Cut.
That's called ground reaction force. So on this model, there's the transverse process of the first cervical vertebrae. So if I take this neck and bend it left, do you see how it's up? That's me standing on my right leg. That guy is going up just like that. I'm pushing it up with my finger. And that guy, we're all now osteopaths. This guy, or OA chiropractors, nuchal chiropractors. So this guy is traveling up into the occipital condyle. And you're going to see what happens when it goes up into the occipital condyle like that. So, watch the next video.
With the right atlas pressing into the occipital condyle on the right side, it causes the occiput to rotate to the left. You now have the components for a left cranial side bend. Right wing of the sphenoid up and rotation of the occiput to the left. Cut.
Play it again.
Where's the maxilla and all that?
You see my right hand right here? The maxilla would be underneath and forward of this sphenoid.
So would you typically see like an IR-like palate?
You typically, in a left side bend cranial strain pattern, are going to see an IR'd left palate. In a torsion pattern, it could be IR'd left or right. So if you see an IR'd right palate, you're more than likely dealing with a torsional strain on top of this side bend. If you see a left IR'd palate, it could be one with both. I'll play it one more time and then I'll demo. Oops. Play it one more time and I'll demo.
With the right atlas pressing into the occipital condyle on the right side, it causes the occiput to rotate to the left. You now have the components for a left cranial side bend. Right wing of the sphenoid up.
Or left down.
And rotation of the occiput to the left. Got it.
So the sphenoid, get this guy oriented right. Let me back up a little bit. I took that occiput and rotated it like, hey Christy. So I took this occiput and rotated it like this. Remember in the vertex view of the images by Strocon and James? They also have the sphenoid doing this, remember? Because the maxilla is following that sphenoid. So I could have done this, boom. Some osteopaths will call this a left side bend because this is convex. Other osteopaths call it a left side bend because the greater wing of the sphenoid is down on the left side. Who cares? All I care is this whole thing that I just did in those 3 videos is a phenomena of right loading, which is right occlusal contact, which creates the strain pattern in scoliotic tongues. That's what I care about. All I need to do is teach them to not do this. James said earlier, we're inhibition specialists. Turn off all the muscles that are having them do this. And turn on the muscles that help them do this. And then teach them how to breathe while they're there to neurologically confirm that they were successful. It's really that easy. Class dismissed. The maxilla, yeah, please.
Just, this is a nice view of what Mike's showing you, but the occiput needing to rotate to the left, taking the temporal bones with it, there's your jaw. Your jaw's obligated to follow that.
It is. That is a
Your jaw has
fact.
to go with where this occiput is directed. It has no choice. And your maxilla has no choice but to follow the sphenoid. So when you see, I just need you to appreciate, when you see a sphenoid going like this to the right and an occiput going like this to the left, you really have a mandible going left and an occiput and a palate going right. If you can appreciate that and know why, and know that the body directing that neck into that side bent posture that pushes the occiput up and turns it to the left, that's why jaws go left. The body did it to the jaw through the occiput.
So the maxilla,
body did it to the sphenoid, to the palate through the sphenoid. Because this is right behind the palate. This is the palate director, and this is the mandibular director.
yes.
If you pick that up, you're like, oh, that's why the occiput matters. That's why the sphenoid matters, because that's my mandible, and that's my maxilla.
So the condyle position is dictated by the maxilla, which is by the sphenoid, which is also by the temporal bone.
The S bone is the ruler, baby. Because the S bone is touching the occiput, the S bone is touching the temporal bones, the S bone is touching the maxilla. As this S bone goes.
Orthodontically place patients in certain position or restoratively place patients in certain position.
Draw that.
You know it's perfect, and then all of a sudden it moves. You know it's not because you placed them in a certain position, but they were unstable when you placed them there to begin with, or maybe they were stable and something happened in their lives and they became unstable.
Yes, ma'am.
So would it be safe to say, and this is not a blame game, it's just, when you don't know, you don't know.
Right.
Because, I've been in practice for almost 33 years, and I myself have been convinced that I have a temporomandibular joint disorder. However, all images and everything that we've ever been able to find, there's no real physical issue with that temporomandibular joint. So I have been saying now for a few weeks, which is funny that it comes, is that, no, I believe that this has been a misdiagnosis, that we just didn't know. There's something else going on, and I've been thinking viral and so on, but this is obviously a massive component for me. So it's not necessarily that this is temporomandibular joint disorder. This is...
It's a systemic disorder. You may have temporomandibular symptoms that are the peak that tell you there's a problem. I happen to have some pain in one or the other, but that's what alerted me to go seek I have this pain Could somebody help me identify this? Well, that is temporomandibular joint dysfunction. Oh, cool. How come I have that? We don't know. I mean, that's what it is. Let's investigate it. CT it, MRI it, do whatever you want to do. Well, your symptoms certainly are a TMD. But the TMD looks fine. Be thankful, young lady. Okay, and now how are we going to do the pain? Well, the pain is in your mind. Take these drugs to feel better about your pain and have a nice day, and we'll call you tomorrow. Actually, we won't call. So yeah, just stay on drugs, and hopefully you won't figure out how to use your phone and call us back.
And take these drugs to counteract the drugs I gave you.
Yes, because there will be some problems with those drugs, but we won't worry about that today. Just remember TMD. So I stuck this up here.
Insurance won't pay anything if you mention TMD because nobody knows what the heck is going on. Right. And they're not about to shell out a lot of money for something that no doctor can figure out.
Cervicogenic syndrome works better. So lateral flexion and rotation of the mid-cervical. This is back when I had my skull bones all put together and not in a bag. So I took them before I tore it all apart and laterally flexed it and took a picture, just so you see lateral flexion. And with lateral flexion, and this is kind of a big deal, left lateral flexion and left rotation of the mid-cervical spine, what I want you to appreciate about this image is that the bodies of the vertebra rotate, like here's a transverse process, here's a transverse process. I'm a vertebra. I'm facing away from you. If you bend me left, I'll rotate into the turn if I'm normal. If you bend me right, I'll rotate into the turn to the right. Opposite occurs in the lumbar spine. And you're like, Mike, why are we talking about that? Because that's what keeps us balanced and upright, are these two opposite rotations. And what we have with a lot of patients with respiratory compromise is a straight cervical spine. The minute the cervical spine is straight, because of hyperactivity of the anterior neck, to help me breathe, but it's paradoxical because it doesn't really help me, then when I side bend, vertebra can go anywhere they want. One can go left, one can go right, one won't rotate at all. So when I take that neck and bend it in one direction or the other, I get limitations in movement. Now, you know, if I've got a 75-year-old man who's had arthritis all his life and I hold his neck and it doesn't move much, okay, I'm kind of not surprised. But if I've got a 15-year-old kid and I bend his neck and it feels like a 75-year-old man, I'm betting money there's no arthritis in that neck. What's up with that? If we release his tongue, all of a sudden his neck bends because he just reestablished a cervical lordosis, which gave him an airway, which allowed him to drop his chest because you gave him a curve. I don't care how he gets a curve. As long as he gets a curve in his neck, it's going to move and he'll have freedom. The minute he has freedom, with freedom comes great responsibility. So we have to teach him now what to do with his newfound freedom, or else there's going to be anarchy.
That's why we need our myofunctional therapists so much.
And that's what I'm saying. So this is what it would look like in real life. This is my model. This is real life. So what you're seeing here in this 3D CT is kind of cool. I flashed this before in a couple of talks down here because it's such a good image. What I want you to look at, and remember my fingers are the neck videos, I want you to look at the first cervical vertebra. What do you see? Down, up,
So which
ground.
foot is this person on?
Yeah, which foot is this person standing on? Right leg. So if I'm on my right leg, I'm going to dramatize left lateral flexion. Boom. That is left laterally flexing neck. So the right cervical vertebra goes up into the occiput. That causes this occiput to start rotating in that direction, which is left rotation, because the front of the occiput is going that way. What you see then, what did James say? The occiput is the mandible. What do you notice about the mandible? It's over yonder. So what do you think the bite's doing? It's doing what Strocon and James said in the pictures a few minutes ago. Isn't this badass? So now it's like it changes the way you start thinking about this. I wonder what their feet are doing.
Say it again. Say it again.
Okay.
I'm just trying to visualize this. Yeah.
That's cool.
This blew me away.
And you know,
I know what she wants to know. She wants to know how is this person on the right side of their occlusion.
I'm down.
Okay.
I'm so down. Have you ever tried to
Because
speak
you
to
would
somebody?
think that this person would be on the left side of occlusion because their jaw's going
It's going left. Why don't they hit harder on the left?
Exactly.
But the mandible's going this way.
The mandibles going that way. Geez, it would seem like they'd be hitting harder on the left. I'm so with you. And the palate is internally rotating on the left. Oh yeah. Hold on to that because it's important.
About the palate now.
So let's go mandible and then we'll go palate.
Okay.
All right? Because this is cool.
Because she's right on in the frontal plane, logic makes sense. So you'd be like, yeah, that'd be left occlusal sense in the one dimension, the one plane. But as Mike talks, he's going to give you 2 additional dimensions that are how we end up with a right occlusal sense.
We're going this way, but then the sphenoid's doing something different.
I'm going to go back to the Strocon and James drawing first, okay?
It's going to bring the top teeth into the right molars.
All of y'all stand up.
Yeah.
That's going to help you. We're going to walk this through. Okay? Just stand up and do this. Get on your legs. Well, mine is doing the thing again too.
I hit harder somewhere else, right? What is that? What do you think that tells us? So,
Mike, look out. It's sassy over there.
what's she doing? What's Daphne doing? Oh, she's calling people out. She's calling them out. She's like, look at that one. All right, so we're going to do a standing up activity. First of all, let's do this. And we can pick out the weirdos in the room. Because there's always weirdos. We can pick out the weirdos.
I think they'll jump up. They want to be picked up.
All right, so, here, really, everybody in here is a weirdo, right? All right, so here's what I want you to do first. Just stand here, chill, and drop your chin down and tap your teeth. Relax your jaw and tap your teeth, and make a note of what hits. Now, come back up.
If you're in heels, take your heels off.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even think about it. If you're in high heel shoes, so, God love you. Okay, so you made a note of what hit. Now, look up at the ceiling, relax your jaw, and tap, tap. Did it change? All I want to know is, did it change? Got it? Okay, who didn't it change on? Okay, so we got 3 weirdos so far, right? Because what we know is, what did I say? I said, look down, relax your neck, and tap, tap. And then I said, look up, relax your neck, and tap, tap. 3 people in the room couldn't relax their neck, right? So the minute you can relax your neck, you're at least 1 step ahead in the game, right? So now immediately what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this human and I'm going to go, why couldn't she relax her neck? And I might put her on the table and guide rib cages down to get her to relax her neck, and all of a sudden her occlusion is going to change. She's going to go, oh, okay, I get what you mean now. Cool, that was 1 step in learning, right? So now let's do this stance thing. So pick a leg, stand on it. Pick the right, go to the right. Everybody go to the right leg. I like the way you did, you just went boom. Rachel just goes, bam, yeah, what's up? She's like instantly in that right leg. All right, so hang out there for a moment. Relax as best you can. Tap, tap. And don't crush it, just tap, tap. Now, make a note. Go to the left leg. Relax and tap, tap. Now, when you did that little experiment, when you were on the right leg, how many of you hit on the right side? Raise your hand. Decent. Now, of you right side hitters, I'm going to get to you other guys in a second. Of you right side hitters, when you went to the left, how many of you successfully tapped on the left set of teeth? So when you went left, you hit left, and when you went right, you hit right. Yes? Okay. So it would imply that you successfully held your neck in a fair position.
The gal who couldn't relax her neck is still shaking her head no.
Like,
That's of
so-
interest. That's why you guys
right.
catch that.
So when I was on the right, what did I hit? Right. And when I went left, I went even. So never successfully made it left. Just appreciate that for a minute. This is most of these challenging patients in a quick, easy screen. Like, this screen is so lame, you understand that. This is a lame screen, but it's a fun thing to do. Shift into your right hemisphere again. Hang out there and ask yourself, analyze neck position. Are your eyes on the horizon right now? Do you feel like they're level on the horizon? Or are you a little tilted or what? So what should be happening is you should have your eyes on the horizon, because your eyes are generally always going to be on the horizon. Let's analyze that for a minute. Stand on both feet. Bend your body to the left and keep your eyes on the horizon. Struggle to keep your eyes on the horizon. You're going to find yourself dramatically trying to bend your neck to the right. Some of you might be running into resistance in your neck as you try to do that. But you're trying to keep your eyes on the horizon. Does that make sense? Now do it casually. Stand on the left leg and keep your eyes on the horizon. Your neck is still now laterally flexing to the right now. Does that make sense? In this position, with you on your left leg, eyes on the horizon, you should be able to casually make more contact. You're hitting both sides, but you should be noticing more contact on your left.
On your left, no.
On your left.
Mine's on my right.
Exactly. We just found a problem child, right? And we'll find plenty of problem children in here, especially if you're in braces. Because we're trying to create an occlusion contact here that may or may not match this body underneath. At what point are we getting centric occlusion on this human? Are we getting centric occlusion with her in her right hemisphere? I guarantee you the answer to that is yes. Because when she's laying in the chair, she's in her right hemisphere. So we're going to get her teeth nice and perfect while she's in her right hemisphere. Yes, ma'am.
So when I'm on my right,
Mm-hmm.
I hit more on my right.
Uh-huh.
When I switch to my left, I'm like even. What is that? So I'm weird at
Only slightly weird on this. Now remember, this is a garbage can test, but it's a decent test.
Because I wear that splint every night left side bias.
To give you left side bias because you have a hard time getting left in left stance. The splint is our permission slip that allows someone to be free to get into the left hemisphere.
So when ideally, if you're on your left, you shouldn't hit at all on your right.
You make contact on the right, but you should be making heavier contact on the left. Does that make sense? The movements that are drawn in this drawing show these huge movements of teeth. I want you to appreciate these are subtleties of movement, but you can't draw subtlety because nobody sees it. You guys can have a seat. Yes, ma'am.
I'm always on the left, and my right.
Say again?
I'm always on the left. My right, you know, the little.
You hear this?
I mean, I've known about it for like 4 or 5 years. I even talked to Kathy about it. This is always blocked. My
Kathy
little
Johnson?
Station too. And Herb and Kathy are like, "What's your sphenoid? Push it up in the back." So I'll go sometimes and try to unblock it, but it's always blocked because I know my sphenoid is like.
So we're going to talk about this
And
one.
I'm left, like my gun, my barrel, it's so curved. I'm
Oh, like when you're shooting.
I'm left eye dominant, everything.
So because these individuals haunt my clinic all the time, wherever I am. And what this is what we refer to as a repetitive rotation superior T8 syndrome. It's got a name. That phenomena, I would bet money on it. She makes heavy left occlusion. She's got a right TMD. She's got a left rib flare.
I don't, it's just the.
A right TM symptom called a eustachian tube that's dysfunctional. Yeah, this one has a TMD, but there's nothing wrong with her TMJ. This one has a TMD, but there's nothing wrong with your TMJ. We're just giving it a label because you point here.
I chew mostly on the left. I can't, my right occlusion hardly touches.
Which means she grounds better on her left. It may not be real grounding on the left. It's phony grounding on the left because you are, let me give you an example and this will make sense. So I had a baseball player once he's a left-handed pitcher, throws a ball 95 miles an hour. So he's a really prized commodity. So a left-handed pitcher throwing 95 miles an hour, when you lay someone on a table and you take an arm off the table, it should go about 70 degrees. His left horizontal abduction was 5 degrees. The reason I was seeing him is because he had destroyed his labrum in his socket right here. So the labrum, this is the socket, this is the ball. There's an O-ring that goes around the socket. This O-ring of cartilage can pull away. And it's called a SLAP lesion in orthopedics. So what they did was they did what's called a SLAP repair. They take the labrum and attach it back to the glenoid. After he had that surgery, he went through rehab, and it failed, and he retore the labrum. So they did another repair, and that's when I saw him. He had 5 degrees of horizontal abduction. He was about 2/3 of the way through his rehab, and he was doing okay, but he started to feel pain, and the therapist said, wait a minute, let's stop right here. That's when I saw him. And I said, okay, you're a right-handed pitcher. And he said, oh, no, Mike, I'm the lefty, remember? And I said, oh, I know you throw a ball with your left hand, but you're a right-handed person. He goes, no, I'm a lefty. I write, I eat, I throw. I'm a lefty. And I said, I hear you. I want you to hear me. Why are you daring to throw a ball with your left hand from a right-sided body? I don't mind if you want to throw. Are you telling me to throw with the right hand? No. Throw with your left hand. But if you're going to throw with your left hand, let's get you in your left hemisphere and make you a legal lefty. You're making left occlusal contact, but it's illegal. You've got a left eye dominance, that's illegal. You've got a right-sided body with left occlusal contact. Which hemisphere are you in? Neither. I'm illegally in both. That's like saying, I'd like for you to go into the other room, but stay here. That dog won't hunt. That doesn't work. It's either there or here. Does that make sense? So what we want to do is legally place you in either hemisphere at any given moment. Not half in one and half in the other. You can't be in both. Make sense? That's what's cooking with you. That's why your success with pushing up your sphenoid is limited. It's marginal. Because there's got to be more. You can't just push up a sphenoid. You can do a right lateral pterygoid for pushing up a sphenoid on that side. Your right lateral pterygoid raises your right wing of your sphenoid. Your left lateral pterygoid raises the left wing of the sphenoid. So we can move the sphenoid with your pterygoids. With one exercise, you don't have to push up on it in your mouth. You look kind of dumb doing that anyway. This is easier to get away with. You look thoughtful. So, but it's more than that. We would have to first internally rotate those left ribs, get you into one hemisphere, teach you how to load onto the right leg. Heck, we'd internally rotate her right ribs. Get her into her right hemisphere. So do you understand there's so many complicated ways people can present? What did we just see with that experiment? Right? We saw all kinds of variations. Okay, so I'm going to keep going. How are we doing time-wise?
Does anyone need a bathroom break? We've just been taking them slowly.
Yeah, I just kind of saw that. That's what made me ask. How are we doing? What time is it?
It's 10:50.
Okay, all right, let's rock.
We got till 12:30.
All right.
Do you need a break?
Me?
Need some water or something, or tea, or
No, I'll steal Tammy's, but I'm good. Or James's. Or James's. All right. So what I want you to look at is a physical representation of a left cranial side bend strain pattern. So in this representation, you're seeing some of the obvious, right? This is a nice, easy one to spot. So the only reason it's up here is because I want you guys to become a little bit prejudiced in your observations of people, especially your own patients. And I put notes over here, and I put a front view. That white back there is the occiput. The blue hole is the foramen magnum. The yellow is the sphenoid. And you see how they're moving together? My fingers on the neck, remember that? So you see how they're moving together. You got a left eye that's following that wing. The chin is obligated to go leftward because of the occipital rotation that you can't really see in this image. You've got what's called a counterclockwise face. So this is why it's called a counterclockwise face, the way I'm doing the laser. A laser. Okay. And then a prominent left ear. You can't really quite see her prominent left ear because of her hair. What else do you happen to notice that's not mentioned? And I'll mention it. You see an asymmetry in the lips. We see a zygomatic bulge here that sometimes isn't. It can be bulged here, but there's an asymmetry there. Her nose seems to be deviated. The nares are different. Look at the right sternocleidomastoid. So why would that right SCM be more prominent than the left? Her neck is actively rotating. Her neck is actively rotating to the left, courtesy of that right SCM. Now that right SCM is doing something for us, and it's relative to that right shoulder. Is this shoulder lower than that one? Yes. So the right SCM said, wow, this warehouse for air is closed for business. I think I'll engage to help lift this chest to put air in that apex. Think about that for a minute. We know that the SCM is an accessory muscle of respiration. So that right SCM, I'm going to dramatize this by orienting my rib cage big time over here and rotating back to the left, and now I'm going to turn my head this way. Boy, do I have an SCM rocking off the chain now. This right SCM is trying to affect this closed warehouse by engaging to lift my chest to put air in here. You know who else helps a lot with that? Can you rub that knot for me that's right here? I'm just saying. So this right upper trap has now become an accessory respiratory muscle. Check that. Let's call it a primary respiratory muscle. So let's press on. Here's another one. So we've got a left eye lower, prominent left ear, chin going leftward, counterclockwise face, and look at the shoulder. Would you say his neck is left laterally flexed? Yeah. Would you say that he's got a prominent right SCM? Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's Mom. We can look at another.
Look at his ear. Externally rotated temporalis.
Yeah, this temporal bone is in ER. Let's.
The only good thing this guy's got going is he's from Texas.
Right? He could be from Georgia now. He would be really cool if he was. I'm just saying, I was born in Texas. Ease up.
See there?
He's got a bunch of things going on. Which one of y'all referred him to us? There's somebody in here, right? He has a bunch. James, what all does he have? I just saw him yesterday, by the way.
He has scoliosis of the face, tongue, and spine.
And he had pain, though. He has pain. I'm trying to remember. He doesn't have much anymore. He's doing pretty good right now, by the way. He's doing really good.
And when you say he had pain, did he have dental pain or body pain or both?
Yes.
Everything.
He had everything pain. This is another one. This is up in Virginia. This one's much more subtle. Much more subtle. The best thing you got going, there's a little bit of an orbital cant, not much. There's a shift. If you look, it looks as though her whole head is shifted that way on that neck. Do you see how this area is higher than this area? If I see this, I'm more than likely dealing with a left cranial side bend. When I see even eyes, I'll check both legs and they'll have a positive what we call ADT on both sides in the legs. So these two Jameses know that this gal looks like a PEC. So we know that lower extremity tests are going to be different on her than they would be on him. But she's still a left cranial side bend. When we look inside somebody's mouth, we look for things as physical therapists that you might not be looking for. If I put on my myofunctional therapy hat, I look for things that as a dentist I might not look for. Now as a dentist, if we look, what do you guys see? You go, girl. So Ruge, and that would be a good myofunctional therapist observation. Say again? High palatal vault, yeah. Mm-hmm. Anything else? How about teeth? How many teeth does this guy have? I figured you dentists would jump all over that one right out of the gate, right? Yeah, so isn't he missing? What's he missing? Is it bicuspids? Is that what they took? Yeah. So, I mean, Felix Leal wrote that book, right? 6-foot tiger in a 3-foot cage, right? And Felix is trying to expand that cage, right? Let's make a life of taming the tiger. Let's tame the tiger. It is kind of both. I totally agree.
Because, I mean, at the end of the day, you can tame the tiger all you want to, but if there's no room in the cage, the tiger's butt is sitting in the back of your throat.
I'm down. I'm so down with you, sister. So I want you to, let's look at the cage here. And what do we see? Yeah. Is it symmetric? What leg is this person standing on? This person is standing on their right leg. This palate is externally rotated. This palate is internally rotated. Do you see that? Do you see it now? This palate is internally rotated.
Wilson, you'll notice that you'll see the difference in that too. So you can imagine the lower part.
This palate is externally rotated. If this was a valley and we were going to climb to the top of the mountain, this hill is not as steep as this hill. There's the valley. Here's the top of the mountain. This is a steep cliff. This is a hill. Do you see that?
You can see by the occlusal plane too. Look at this occlusal plane right here going this way and this. So this
yeah.
is going this way is because the palate is coming out this way more. Are y'all seeing that? So your occlusal plane can give you, you'll see that too.
Can I say this?
On that picture, they are standing on their right foot.
They're standing on both feet. They might be sitting on their butt.
No, but what I'm saying is you said
Their right foot. Yes, they're standing on their right foot. They are right-bodied. Go ahead, James.
I was going to say, tell me your name. Neela. Neela, you were asking about that sense of the right occlusion. Remember, this maxilla is moving toward the right, and the mandible is coming back. So this maxilla makes its way over with a different half of the vault. The left half of this maxilla is different than the right, and this maxilla is on the move toward the right mandibular tooth. That's how we get that contact on that right side.
So it's the sphenoid kind of what occlusion power.
Yeah, the sphenoid's taking all these teeth, and in the process of taking all these teeth is internally rotating this maxilla and externally rotating this maxilla. This externally rotated maxilla, as it moves toward those mandibular teeth, hits them. Because you're stuck on the right leg.
I have a model.
But you still do have the
So as this, go for it. And I'm going to do this big in a minute, so I'm not hiding it from you.
Absolutely both. Absolutely both.
This maxilla and this maxilla are being oriented to the right in the transverse plane. I'm going to do that again. Boom, transverse plane. Simultaneously, there is frontal plane narrowing of the left vault. That frontal plane narrowing and frontal plane widening are increasing contact on this side and taking contact, robbing me of contact ability on this side.
Although the mandible is going that way.
The mandible is going that way.
Got it.
So I'm going bang like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it is.
It's a
You ready, Ann?
twist. Yeah, I thought you
I'm coming your way.
I was about ready to scream.
You're like, Mike, come on. I'm right here. I'm going to take this maxilla and I'm going to... I was going to do it there. This maxilla is following the sphenoid, rotating in the transverse plane to the right, and simultaneously this half of the maxilla in the frontal plane is narrowing, and this half of the maxilla in the frontal plane is widening. The mandible, meanwhile, is going to the left, and that's what's increasing that contact on the right side. Got it?
And they're standing on their right side.
They are standing on their right leg. Even if they're standing on both legs, they are biased toward right hemispheric occupation. And that's brought to you by your diaphragm. Yes?
I'm trying to wrap my head around because
Good pun.
you're looking at that. Is that a developmental, that's the way they always are going to look until you start to develop more bone on the other side? Or does that bone actually change?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I really messed it up with that answer.
I know.
So there is a standard presentation.
Like if that same patient within 2 minutes changed and went to the other leg, is the bone going to become more, the heel going to become more?
Over time, yes. Some people can see orbital change height in moments.
Okay.
I've seen it with released tongues. I've seen a released tongue create orbital shift. And some people on a bad day can have really bad orbits, and on a good day have less bad orbits. So these changes, bone. Okay. And that's what's hard to get our heads around, right. Bone. Because we're brought up to know something's got to not move. Right. This has got to be stable. I got to have a platform from which to operate. So this can't move. Please don't tell me this moves. But I'm like, it does, and it strains, and it breathes. We have cerebrospinal fluid that functions as a result of that and creates flow because this thing expands and contracts. And it does it alternately. There's a cool video you can go onto YouTube and look up breathing skull bones or something like that, and you're going to see 3 or 4 videos of expanding and contracting skull bones showing how they all oscillate. It's a neat video. I've got it in some PowerPoint. It's not in this one, I don't think. But it's just a cool video that shows skull bones moving. They don't move as dramatically as that video would show. But the whole point is, what I want you to get from this is they move and they can affect bite. That's it. That's it. It's easy to see this move. In the world of physical therapy, we had big debates about pelvises and do they move or do they not move? Yeah, I know. So here we are. I want you to look at this Dentsply Sirona image. And as you're looking at this, I want you to tell me what palate, the right or the left, is in ER and what palate is in IR. So now you're looking at it from the inside. And then she's going to bring it back down. And then she's going to stop it in a good place. And if it doesn't stop well, I'll stop it in a minute and replay it. Right there. Right there. Come on. Right there. What do you think? Which one was in ER? You want me to play it again, Sam?
Which one is steeper?
Which one is steeper? Is this steeper? Or is this one, which one's wide, which one's steep?
Yes.
I think most of us would agree this side is the steep.
I'll tell you a little secret for me. When I look at models, sometimes it's a lot harder for me to see. But when your assistants are taking your alginates to forever, take the alginate and look at that. It is so freaking obvious.
Yeah, you can look at the alginate and go, wow.
It is way more obvious than
don't do very many alginates anymore.
Then look at the model. Look at the scan. Just look. Or just tell them to open up, look like you're buying a horse. Yep. I feel like I'm buying horses all the time. Come here, lady. Hey, John Arthur.
Look from the back of your alginate, you can really see that.
So all of that was left side bend. Let's look at right torsion. So in a right torsion, left eye is still lower, but the mandible can be going to the right. You can still have a prominent left ear. Let me give you a better view. Wait, let's talk about that first. So let's read for a minute. You already kind of know this. Whoops, sorry. I'll come back to her. You kind of know this. In the right torsion, the only real difference is the occiput is pulling down on one side. So the torsion comes from the neck, just like the side bend, but it goes beyond up into the spheno-basilar joint powerfully in both planes, transverse and frontal. I'm going to take the models and show you. It occurs at the SBS because C0 now acts on C1, and I'm going to show you what I mean. This is because of the associated history. Usually they're PECs, which makes no sense to you. It's a different body presentation, braces or trauma, and lots more things can cause a right torsion. Clinically, there's only one surefire way to discern a torsion patient. Before I get to her, I want to go to, where'd my girl go? I just had a girl. Where'd she go? There she is. So in this torsion patient, if you see an internally rotated right palate, you're pretty certain you're dealing with a torsion patient. If you see an internally rotated left palate, it could be a left side bend or a torsion. So what I want you to look at is this view. So what you're seeing is the sphenoid is still the same, but look what the occiput did. When yes, it's a steeper. My bad.
I'm pre-K.
Oh, I love you. Neela, I love you.
Of a midline, internally rotated is toward the midline, so it would be steeper on that side.
Right palate, left palate. Don't worry, Ann, I'm coming your way. Right palate, left palate. Let's say they're the same. I'm going to internally rotate my left palate in the frontal plane. Ready? Boom. Now I'm going to internally rotate the right palate. Boom. I'm going to internally rotate both. Boom. Steep palate on both sides. Let's make one worse. Ooh, let's make the other one worse. So if I see an internally rotated right palate, that generally speaking only occurs in right torsions. By the way, I may be changing that, just so you know. But it generally speaking only occurs in torsion patients. Torsion in right torsions. Right torsions can also have an internally rotated left palate. So if you see an internally rotated left palate, you can't say it's a torsion or a side bend for sure, because they both could be internally rotated on the left side. But if you see an internally rotated right palate, you know it's a torsion, because left side bends aren't internally rotated on the right side. Ugh, I hate even saying that because it gets confusing.
I want Play-Doh with a skull.
Oh, that would be fun. Now we're pre-K in it, Neela. Now we're pre-K in it.
Because you know what, all of this, you'll see when you see all of these portions on the palate, you'll see it in the tongue.
Right palate, left palate. I'm going to internally rotate the left palate. Boom. See it? I'm going to internally rotate the right palate. Boom. Torsions can be internally rotated, and torsions and side bends can be internally rotated on the left. But if you see an internally rotated right, you know it's a torsion. I said it really good just then. You should have heard it.
Yeah. Say it again.
All right. I'm gonna look at the camera too. So left palate, right palate. I'm going to internally rotate the left palate. Boom. Now they're back to neutral. I'm going to internally rotate the right palate. Boom. Torsions and side bends can have an internally rotated left palate. But if you see a right internally rotated palate, you know it's not a side bend. It is a torsion. That was good, wasn't it?
Can you say it one more time? Why is it just one side?
You want me to say, wait, I'm going to answer that. what happened just here?
Why? Because what qualifies it to be a right torsion?
Okay, so if you look at that drawing here, the bottom drawing, you see the occiput is being pulled down on the right side. What that does is it puts a new twist on the sphenobasilar joint. What it does, remember when I had the video of my fingers or the neck? And I said when the neck left laterally flexes, the occiput and the sphenoid went down together on the left side. With a torsion, I start increasing right upper trap and pull the occiput down on the right side. And it puts a twist at the joint in the frontal plane. It's that twist that creates a nightmare up into the skull. And now you don't know what you're going to get here.
So it's basically caused by accessory muscles that start behaving as main muscles of respiration. So
Or-
torsions are respiratory problems.
Or trauma, or behavior, or extra stuff. Right, especially multiple braces. Because with multiple braces, you start going into the history, you say, well, Mrs. Smith, how many times have you had braces? Well, 3 times. What happened? Well, I had braces when I was a kid. Okay. And it went fine. No problems with that? Yeah, it went fine. And then later on, my teeth were off, so they put braces back on again. How'd that go? Well, you know, it's kind of funny you're asking that. They kind of had a hard time closing the deal. Couldn't quite finish it because now her body's on the move. And then, so, you know, we had it in a pretty good place, and I was okay. So, that, you know, they took them off, and that was fine. And then I noticed it was way off again, and so we went for round 3. And it was after round 3, it was kind of weird, Mike, because when I was in the middle of that round, I really, you know, I started getting some bad fill in the blank, headaches, neck ache, back pain, shoulder pain, hip pain, foot pain. But I knew my foot pain couldn't be related to the braces. I mean, come on. And I was like, sure. But, you know, we're going to chat, and, you know, we'll probably discover that's why, you know, the more we started tinkering with occlusion, the more we start shifting center of mass. And the more I shift my center of mass, say, forward, because I need to inhale more, the more I inhale, the more my center of mass is on the ball of my feet. I start overusing my gastrocs, and I get an Achilles tendon rupture. So it'd be pathologic if it's on the left side. So anyway, so now I'm going to move forward again. You know, this makes it sound like, and I do not want this to sound like this. This is by no means an indictment on surgeries. It's not an indictment on palatal expansions. It's not an indictment on braces. I thank God for that. Because there are people, my good friends, one of my friends had a herniated disc at L5-S1, bad. And had it not been for that surgeon to go in there and correct that, I can do all this postural restoration junk I want. It wasn't going to fix that. We had to have a cleanup on aisle 5 for that guy. And thank God for the educated people who spent half their life learning how to do this science. So it's so easy for me to walk up here and willy-nilly start indicting people, and that is not what I'm doing. What I'm saying is I want people to be fully aware and understand the power that you have, especially in this room, the power you have. It's incredible. This is not an indictment. This is an appreciation. It's like I want to hug your neck. That's where I'm at in my head. I know that's where he is. And I know that's where he is. And I know that's where she is. Just so you know. Now I'm going to back up to right here. So many times on these individuals, we won't see a dropped right shoulder either. We'll see a shoulder that's up and a thorax that's still over here.
It's because that
Increasing right upper trap activity. Sometimes we'll see a 2-curve scoliosis in those patients because they figured out another way to, this me, I'm a torsion. And I figured out a way to cheat and get in my left hemisphere because I had an amputation. I had a bicuspid amputation. I don't call it an extraction. An amputation. All right, so I'm going to continue. So, torsion. These are the differences, and we kind of chatted about that a little bit and talked about what happens at the SBS in the frontal plane. With all of that in mind, tell me what this is. And if you say, holy crap, I don't know. This patient is coming soon to a theater near you. What I want you to appreciate is now all of a sudden this means something. She's got the wrong orbit down, but she's still got a bulging left ear and a bulging left face, a right shoulder that's higher. This patient right here, you can see how young she is, and she's about as happy as that image displays her. She's in Virginia. I'll be seeing her soon. When she started, she's probably a right side bend, repetitive rotation. She's got laxity, and I believe, if I'm remembering right, James, when I saw her, super hyperflexible hamstrings. And the minute I have anybody who's a history of ballet or gymnastics, I'm already knowing they're in the pre-fibromyalgia program. So, beg your pardon?
Did she have cranial stenosis on her left?
I don't know. When you say cranial stenosis, what do you mean?
Premature fusing of the sutures.
Oh, I can bet money she had some premature fusing someplace. Here's another one. So what I want you to take out of this is that normally abnormal is a good old-fashioned left cranial side bend. Bring me that anytime. They're easy. Bringing me complex patients like this young lady has a history of spastic torticollis, was a breech birth. Couldn't latch when she nursed. That right upper trap never shuts off on her. So what you're going to take out of that is, I know what normally abnormal is. Good old left cranial side bend, maybe sprinkle a little right torsion on that. We're golden. It's like yawn, bring me something challenging, right? Then when you start throwing those guys in the mix, it's like, wow, this can go anywhere. What caused it? And it's like, indeed, we're still sorting this out. So we may be at mile marker 28, but the road is 2,000 miles long. So it's like, we're still trying to sort these folks out. I presented this case to my mentor, Ron Haruska, and he said to me, damn, Mike, what the hell are you going to do? And I went, whoa, Charlie. You're supposed to be helping me with this one. I don't know. When you see that, all bets are off.
These posture restoration therapists have been alone in trying to sort this out and figuring this out without the help of dentists.
Without a dentist.
This is the first time in history that they're working with dentists. There's only 2 centers in the country that's really intimate doing that. That's here in Houston with us, and in Atlanta with Liz Cahey.
And in Vegas with James right now.
You guys on the frontier this, like right now, if you're talking about needing those molar contacts, what the hell do we do about implant patients when we can't put molar contacts in them?
Isn't this fun?
Right? So
I'm digging it.
But it's also a little terrifying. We're gonna figure this out together. We don't have answers.
Give me your hand.
Yeah, I need a handful because I literally have a patient right now that it's like, I know that I've done everything that I've known how perfectly centric relation.
Yeah.
Everything's adjusted. She continues to have pain. I sent her over to see Giancarlo Romero's a prosthodontist. He's like, Mandy, this is all good. She's Asian. And he said, I learned from Gerard Sheesh that, years ago, that in a few instances, these people posture habitually forward. She's class 2-ish, but they posture forward, and when she does that, what she's doing is she has no contact. So what you're gonna have to do is build contact so there's all this, but now I'm listening to this and I'm going, I don't know, because.
We might be able to teach her how to have contact.
Right, so instead of building up all of her teeth.
Let's just teach her. Let's just teach her.
But how do you explain something that is so cutting edge and so new and not easy to understand?
It's not easy to understand.
We're sitting here,
Yeah, you're WTFing.
So how do you explain this to a patient that is right now going, well, my teeth didn't hurt before?
I'll tell you one thing. I have patients, tell me if this resonates at all. If you've ever dealt with putting up an appliance in somebody's mouth, like a flat plane appliance. You put that flat plane, or adjusting their occlusion. You make an adjustment to an appliance or you adjust their occlusion and it's right. And they go, oh, okay, great, but thank you. And then in days they're calling you back. And they're going, something went wrong. I need another adjustment to my occlusion or my appliance. And you're going, what the hell could go wrong? It was perfect the day I had you. So then they come back in, you do it again. Okay, all right. Now don't, this is perfect. Don't move. And the problem is they're going to move. Here's when they move. When they started to thank you, they went, thank you for helping me with that. They ruined your adjustment right there. So all you really have to do, and I know, I mean, like right now I just want to give this microphone to James because right now he's chomping at the bit to talk more about this. But the minute they take that breath, if we don't teach them how to do it, you know who gets it fast? Patients. You put them on a table and you show them, and they get it, and they go, oh, and they understand. And then you start demonstrating that to them. All right, so let's keep rocking. So I'm going to go, this article right here is in your manual. And it's just, I wanted to put it down on paper. So the article is a step-by-step from toes to nose how this occurs, as best I could do it, with some references thrown into the mix. What we're going to do, it is sort of a long written out definition of respiratory neurodontics before I even knew the word respiratory, before we even made up the word. So it's an attempt at connecting a couple of Rothbard articles with some other research by Timishkin and Sandhouse and Strocon and James and these guys. What Rothbard said was, wow, it's kind of interesting. Vertical facial dimensions are linked to abnormal foot motion. He also went on, he said, hey, this is interesting. You know, you can affect mastoid malar, which is your zygoma, temporal and sphenoid bones by changing dental and foot orthotics. Rothbard is interested in dentistry, and he's a podiatrist. Look at the date of the article. He's been doing this a while. He's been interested in it for a while.
Dentistry needs to catch up.
In 1974, there was a dentist by the name of Allred Fonder who put a Gelb splint in someone's mouth and showed reduction of scoliotic curves. He was Rothbarting all over the place in 74. So some dentists were on the scene. So it's not like, yeah, I mean, we need to wake up. Like I'm a dentist. Yeah, we need to wake up. But Fonder was back there woke. Fonder was woke.
So is this the same kind of thing that you see? Because I mean, I've seen it happen in my own family that, you know, I have a nephew that, you know, has Asperger's or, you know, in that spectrum, Tourette's syndrome and whatnot. And at some point in his life, his tics were so severe. Emotionally, he went through some stuff and he was going through puberty and his tics became so severe. And a friend of mine who's a dentist, Dr. Salinas, has sons that are also autistic and has gone to so many different courses and whatnot. And she does ortho and appliances. Man, she put my nephew into an appliance.
And his tics went away.
Tics went away.
If you Google Brendan Stack, if you go on YouTube and look up Brendan Stack, he's a dentist. And this guy's old school. He's got the bowl that you spit into. And so Brendan Stack has multiple videos of restoring Tourette's, S-T-A-C-K. He's an old timer. He's old school. Brendan Stack understands that appliances are neurologic devices. If you go on YouTube, I could pull one up, but we won't. You do it. Brendan Stack, Tourette's, and then hit enter, and you're going to get 50 million videos. There's just one really good one of a plumber guy, and he's just ticking all over the place. And the minute he puts a stack of tongue blades between his teeth, instantly gone. Instant gone. I ask you, is that an orthopedic device or a neurologic device? And you already know the answer. So,
How can you handle that with a growing child, putting an appliance like that?
grow the appliances with the child.
How often?
Catch them on their growth spurts. I know we do that now.
Find that you think it's hard, but when they start feeling better, they don't want to take it out.
It's not. The kids are pretty easy. You know, I met Amy Ludeman at an AAPMD conference. Did she tell you? Yeah, it was a while back, and then I hung out at her clinic a couple of times. We had some fun. I love her. She was getting there was a talk. Ron Haruska was doing his talk, and she piped up, and I said, I like this lady. She goes, what the hell are we supposed to do? I'm in the middle of a clinic. I'm trying to run a practice. How am I supposed to do this? And I went, you go, lady. So I went over there and talked to her afterwards. I was like, she's my speed.
Who was it?
Amy Ludeman. She's here in Texas. All right. So the article, what we're going to do right now is we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive into that article. And then it's going to get us to the point where we're doing our exams. This foot to the face. So the Rothbard articles connected the foot to the face. The Anderson article shortens the connection and connects the foot to the thorax. The Cantrell article connects the foot to the thorax to the teeth. It's essentially connecting Rothbard to Strocon and James's cranial concepts. And I know it hasn't been done because I've been looking. So it's kind of a fun dive. I'm going to give this clicker and this microphone to James, and I'm going to let him walk through some of this, and you're going to have some fun with this. Here, have that. And I'll clip you while you're doing that.
All right. Went to the ant microphone. Now, guys, I intend this to be a review to solidify what you're already starting to pick up on, okay? My point here is not to impress you with more volumes of information to further confuse and frustrate you. I'm going to give you a little hug, man. I want to give everyone a little hug and say, okay, here we are. Let's just back up. Let's take what we're hearing or what part of what we're hearing that we're getting, and let's build on that. And let's keep it simple and pull some pieces together here. In 2015, I was invited to a sports performance symposium in Boston, and I gave a talk called The Lateralized Foot and Ankle Pattern and the Pronated Left Chest. And the audience that was there, they'd never really heard it worded like that. And they thought, what is this about? And what are you talking about? But I'm going to share you mostly some images and some concepts here to help you appreciate this, but to build on what Mike's been demonstrating and what I've been demonstrating as it relates to coming up into the head and neck and the face and the cranium and the occlusion. So you guys know what a pronated foot is. The pronated foot is the foot that collapses down in the middle, and the supinated foot is the one that rolls up and becomes high arched and rolls to the outside of the foot. You've heard of that. You may have heard of a pronated and supinated forearm. Wrist and hand, the pronation is down. You grab a doorknob and you turn it open, that's supination, but then you have to close that doorknob, that's pronation. It's the same thing with the foot. So if you can appreciate that and just get a visual on that. A definition of pronate, as I just said, turn your hand and forearm so your palm faces down or back. Pronation is, by definition, anytime something goes down toward the floor or back toward the back wall. That gets the name pronation, okay? And we're going to see that go from the foot all the way to the teeth and give you some insights on patterns that you see because of the body getting stuck like this, and then that need for inhibition to unstick it so we can balance everything from the foot to the teeth, okay? Obviously, number 2 is obvious. You rotate the sole of the foot, and you invert it so the inner edge of the sole bears the body's weight. Everybody gets that. But then this is the definition I need you to appreciate, and I just said it, but I want you to see it here. To turn or rotate a limb so that the inner surface faces down or back, or just to lay flat on your face is prone position, or if your full body just pronated, you would just kind of collapse and fall right on your face, okay? That would be pronation. So, let's talk about the rib cage. If you rotate the anterior ribs so that the inner surface of each anterior rib faces down, you're hyperinflated. I'm going to take a big breath into my chest. And you see how all that air coming in took the inside surface of the ribs and just turned them down. I'm basically just drawing my cage forward and up, taking a big breath. Or if I go to one side and go, I'm opening up that side. I'm pronating that half of the chest. So that's just a general visual I want to help you appreciate. If you put the thorax in a prone position, that's also pronation, but you've essentially externally rotated or expanded the ribs. So to take in a ton of air, more than is natural and normal, is pronation. okay? To deflate that air and to exhale it out of there, that's supination. It's just the movement in, the movement out. The ribs rotating up, facing down toward the floor, and then the ribs rotating down where they're starting to face up toward the ceiling. It's pronation going down and it's supination coming up. Take a look at these visuals, which is why I wanted you to see this, for you just to go, okay, you're saying a lot of stuff, James, I don't know if I follow it, but let me put my eyes on a picture, okay? So here we are. This is a supinated thorax. A rib cage that can fully deflate, an ab wall and a diaphragm that can properly work with the pelvis and pelvic floor. That person is grounded because they can fully supinate their thorax, okay?
Show us what that means.
Uh-huh. A supinated thorax is basically, and I'll be this rib cage. I pull back and I ground because my ribs closed. Now I'm going to be that guy. I'm a hot air balloon lifting off because I have ribs that are externally rotated, a cage that's elevated, abdominals that get long and lose their leverage, a diaphragm that gets flatter than this beautifully domed diaphragm. So you can just appreciate that it's a respiratory phenomena. But these people can feel their molars. These people can feel their front teeth. Just in general. Forget right and left, but just appreciate what Mike was doing with the head earlier. We're not doing it with the head now in a standing, we're doing it with breath of air that can deflate and draw you back, literally draw you back over the back part of your body. You see how I fell into the wall here? That's a supinated exhale state. This is a pronated inhale state. And when I get stuck on one leg and one lung, and I have to start resorting to this to continue to breathe well, I'm actually flattening my neck and bringing my head forward because I had to do that because I literally was suffocating here. I couldn't live here. But when ribs can properly supinate, stay anchored, and then properly expand without having to go boom, way forward and way up, your head and neck appreciate that. But when you do have to go way forward and way up with your cage, then you end up having to do something with your head just to see the horizon and to function ahead of you. And that changes things.
So possibly, in dental terms, when you've got a pronated thorax, these are people that you have the hardest time with anterior restorations, chipping off, breaking and all that, and you, even though you put them in perfect occlusion, you don't know why they keep banging these front teeth. It could be their rib cage that's causing your restorations to fail, not necessarily what you've done, right?
Well said.
Sure.
And that's what happened with that guy that we met at AES, who was banging on and spitting on his S's, and it was he was in that position.
And what's interesting, and you've heard Mike talk about one side versus the other, or getting stuck on one leg or one half of your body versus the other. What if one half of your body is the blue and the other half of your body is the red? Because we would like you to be blue and red and then red and blue, and then blue and red and then red and blue. But when you're blue, red, blue, red, blue, red, blue, red, blue, red, blue, red, you're stuck on one leg and you're always doing this with whatever occlusion is associated with that, hopefully, and unable to get over to that on the other side with hopefully an alternation of the bones of your cranium and the sense of that occlusion. That needs to dance when your body dances. And if it doesn't, then that occlusion is screwing up your ability to dance. So if you're a terrible dancer, to the list you can add, maybe it's my bite. And I'm not kidding, even though that's kind of a cute little joke. This is somebody stuck in their right hemisphere. This is Mike with his low left shoulder, and guess what happens to this diaphragm? Low right shoulder, I keep saying left. Low right shoulder. Dome diaphragm, strong ab wall, strong hip and adductor, and when they take air in, their cage just rotates out of that and opens up and expands and becomes a pronated left thorax. That's a low right shoulder. That's always stands on the right hip. That's a person that stands like this and their legs out and they ride with their leg on the door panel and they sleep on their stomach with their leg out like this, and they just live a life that is fitting for being stuck in that half of normal body movement. Now let's be clear, this isn't a problem unless it's a problem. Because that should be half your life, and then you should have a reverse of that for your other half, and you should be able to dance back and forth. When you can't dance, then you're sticky, and nobody wants to dance with you because you look funny. Now, there is a pattern across the feet that can occur with my feet on ground with gravity when my body shifts and turns and rotates over to one leg. If you were skiing, I'm literally supinating on the right and pronating on the left because I am skiing. And now I can't get back because I'm always turning my skis this way. I take care of alpine athletes in Park City, Utah. And these athletes can ski right and cut left, but they can't ski left and cut right. They know it. Their coach knows it. Nobody knows why. It's TMD. They're like, well, that's TMD. You got TMD. You can't cut right. And they really can't get this organized to let their body reorganize so the body shifting over the feet allows this foot to supinate. They're always pronated here and supinated here because their diaphragm pulls them over their right foot. And hopefully proper occlusion goes with that and they have a greater sense on the right teeth. But we can really screw up this ability to ski back and forth with things like a crossbite and a wide variety of malocclusions and things that really start to direct this body into a screwy skiing pattern.
So you're saying you can't be an Olympic skier if you've got a crossbite?
You're gonna either have to develop pain and pathology and discord to pull it off and be good, or you're gonna have one good side and turn quicker and you're gonna get around that flag a lot faster. Okay?
You know, Betsy Baker Bold, our good friend, she works with the U.S. ski team.
Yep.
And covers this material. She's a therapist that we've known for a long time and mentored, and she's helped us in some classes and stuff. And she spends a lot of time with the Olympic ski team and does a bunch of this stuff. Ended up moving to Austria and spending time with one skier for an entire season. I was like, whoa, Betsy, you're all in, aren't you? She goes, well, you know, she's paying the bills. So there you go.
This is a skier who's skiing to the right with all their weight over the outside of their right foot. Can you see that? So that foot I would obviously call a pronated left foot and a supinated right foot. That's not hard to see. But their foot isn't doing that. Their body did that to their feet. Just like the body did what we've talked about to occlusion. The body did that to the feet. Okay? And here he sits. This is actually my 15-year-old son who's 21. That's Ben.
Mike, so what, go back to that, Mike, what would you guess his occlusion looks like?
Oh, that's a great question.
What would you guys want to guess?
Yeah, don't make me guess. Let them
Don't
guess.
guess, Michael told him. Look at that left toe kind of lifting up. Look at the arch between the left and the right, too.
Can't feel his left teeth. Can't feel his left side. Can't feel his left molars. Right there, at that instant, in that pattern.
Which palate would be IR?
The left.
Can y'all see that?
Stay with me, here we go. This guy is shifted, turning, rotated all the way, his spine all the way, essentially, to his skull is going this way. His occiput and the mandible that's directed by the occiput's direction of the temporal bones, did you hear how I said that? Is turning back to the left. The maxilla is responding as the occiput goes this way to the left, the sphenoid goes this way. It has to. You got to keep those bones in your head. When that occiput goes left, the sphenoid goes right. Now I'm giving you this view from below. So now his maxilla and his palate, his sphenoid directs his maxilla and his palate to come back to the right. He internally rotates his left palate. He externally rotates his right palate, and he just is firm and full onto his right occlusion. Because he can't get off his right heel, his right hip, which I'll show you, his right ab wall and rib cage, and his right teeth. He's in a cervical left side bend and left rotation all the time.
Y'all don't worry if you guys don't get this, just appreciate that there is a connection. When you're seeing people's occlusion, I promise you, the same thing is going on with their feet. You know, when I was learning this, Ron said we walk with our teeth and we eat with our feet. So you're gonna see more and more of this as you dive into this. We're talking about being partially aware and then partially proficient. So you guys are on the road. Don't feel like you have to know today. It took me 4 hours to even get this. So we're doing this in a few minutes.
Just take this in. We have a body that gets stuck and compressed in the right half. Not a bad thing to do if you can get out of it and reverse it. He just can't reverse it. Or at least we're depicting him as someone who can't reverse it because he's so stuck in that right side. This is a view of the feet without going into too many details associated with the foot. He's supinated and he's pronated. You see the skiing? He's turning his skis to the right. And this skier skis right and turns left, but doesn't ski left to be able to turn back right. So we put it in a foam box, and just to show you these angles. Do you see these angles? I cut this in half, took the front off, and now I'm tipping it up and I'm showing you. Here's the right arch. Look how steep that is. On a supinated foot, that's a high arch tipped in with a supinated foot, and this is a pronated foot. This is the pronated foot shifting this person to the right. Okay? So he's standing there, his body's pulled over his right hip, and that's what his arches are doing. Flatter on the left, higher on the right. That's all I'm showing you. Can you see that? Higher on the right, flatter on the left. Those angles are the same at the rib cage. So there's a pronated thorax, and plus or minus 3 to 5 degrees, and I assessed about 500 people before presenting this data and research. These are the same angles.
Can I interrupt you for just a
Please.
moment? All right, so when you saw that, I know some of you kind of went, whoa. So imagine now when he's presenting this at the Boston Sports Medicine Group, they did the same thing. Because no one is bringing feet to rib cages and even having a conversation about this. So for them to hear that was just, whoa. Because of those lines right there. I just want you to appreciate that it's not only a whoa moment right here, it's a whoa moment in the regular sports medicine world. So you're not alone in your whoa.
Now guys, that's the foot, this is the thorax.
And then the maxilla.
And the maxilla on the left is internally rotated, but the premaxilla is externally rotated and pronated. So it's the pronated left front teeth. We're going to show you that. In fact, I'm going to go right to it.
Okay, we like these images better.
I know.
Welcome home again.
Welcome home. So, there's your hug. You need a hug. You need another hug. Here's your hug. Okay? This premaxilla has directed this to a pronated state. Do you see now do you see that definition of pronation showing up again? Supination, pronation teeth, supination teeth, pronation teeth.
Teeth tipped out, teeth tipped in.
Teeth tipped out, teeth tipped in. Teeth tipped out is a pronated left. To go with the rib cage, pronated left. To go with the foot, pronated left. Right behind this premaxilla in the actual maxilla, we have internal rotation, which is the steep high, which we'll show you. In fact, this is a great image here. And you can see that the left is steeper. Yep, is steeper. Where this writing is steeper.
The premaxilla is the opposite.
Is the opposite.
Steep right, steep left, pronated.
Pronated, pronated. And needs some restoration work here. But yeah, here's your internal rotation, which you could call supination, kind of that high arch supinated state. Supination, pronation. Supination, supination. Pronation, pronation. It's a natural response all the way to the front teeth of a phenomena that started at the feet and has everything to do with the side that they're stuck on. If we use that word stuck, get patterned on, get neurologically used to and restricted because of. So Mike, if we back this up, this is where Mike's article, and again, just follow the pictures. Don't worry, there's too many words and details. I just want you to follow the pictures. In Mike's article, he starts at the feet, which aren't even in this image, And if someone gets stuck over on the right side or they're in right hemispheric right stance, they have left foot pronation. This left pelvis tips forward, tips out, and rotates out, just like the temporal bones. And these temporal mandibular joints, called femoral acetabular hip joints, have to respond. The only difference is these mandibles aren't fused in the front.
And there's no teeth.
And there's no teeth. Isn't that an interesting way of looking at this pelvis? Because you've got a temporal bone pelvis up here and you got two hip joints on fused femurs that are guided by teeth. Down here there's no teeth, there's toes. There's toes and heels down here, but there's no teeth. Those teeth are the artistic driver neurologically of the entire phenomena. That's why we're here. That's why Mike flies to Houston. That's why I'll get on a plane, cancel what I'm doing in Utah, and as any of you have this interest and as we develop this, we are all about this. You mentioned that this group here is really what you were saying, Julie, that it was really kind of a vulnerable group, willing to be vulnerable and willing to say, man, I don't know what's going on here, but I want to know. That's who Mike and I are looking for. And we could not be more excited about unlocking all of this with what we know you can offer in just minor changes, microns of changes at these occlusal sites that direct the whole brain to release the whole body to go into an entire other half that it didn't have access to, and we know it doesn't have access to.
And nothing they can train can get them.
Oh, we know. We're in.
I'm sorry, but I'm going to tell you, I mean, right now I'm in my major tears.
Yeah.
I want to hug you, and
I'm in tears right now because this is
Mandy, I love you. That is awesome.
Why, Amanda?
Yeah, what's the name of the tears?
What's going on?
because
So my son had a slipped,
Capital femoral epiphysis.
he just had surgery 2 weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
And this is
his entire head of the femur fractured off.
Yeah.
And this is, and I'm in tears right now because I just feel like God
That
is
would
just
be
like
the right
putting
age.
all these
12 to
dots
16,
together.
they say.
Yep.
And she's sitting here with that, and I'm listening to you, and this is my entire life. I mean, my whole life has been pain because of, and I'm clear, you know, it's like, oh, I have a slight scoliosis in my spine. I have TMJ, this or that, and then I can't breathe right, I can't breathe at night, I can't breathe in the daytime, I've had foot issues, gastroc issues, I've torn gastrocs, I've been
restored a gazillion times.
I've had full mouth
By
reconstruction
LBI,
3
by
times,
Pinky,
by
by
the
every-
best of the
everybody
best,
under the
Alice,
planet.
everybody that you could possibly imagine, and nobody's been able to freaking fix me, and I'm exhausted in pain. And then now we have Joey, and she's, you know, she's saying that they've always had issues with his gait. And we were like, why would the head of his femur fracture like that? I mean, I'm talking like she got him in
How
as
old is
quickly.
he?
12.
She got him in, and immediately they were like, we need to go to surgery right now. And that's how serious it was. And you're saying things right now that are like, I'm emotional because this is like, thank you, Lord.
Right. We're here for a reason.
Thank you. We're here for a reason.
we're honored that you're here. We
That's why,
so
Tam.
are.
Tam, that's why.
I saw your hand up a minute ago. Remind me of your name? Rachel, yeah. Thank you, Rachel.
We were curious about edentulous patients, like how, I mean, if, and putting them in a denture that's rigid and on their maxilla that's moving and you can't, yeah, so what do we do with edentulous patients?
It's a pickle. Let me tell you something that you'll find fascinating. Do you mind if I?
Please, thank you.
If babies get up to walk when their molars erupt, people fall when they start losing teeth. Animals that have teeth, that are born on the plains, the antelope, the deer, when they have teeth and they flop onto the ground, they get right up. Teeth are everything. So when you're dealing with people with no teeth and dentures, it's an amputation beyond belief. And it makes the task at hand that much harder. Dentures are a supreme challenge because of balance.
Well, and that must be why nobody's ever happy with a denture, they hate them.
Everybody hates them because their palate can't walk. Palates walk. Breathing is walking.
It's like putting a brace on Forrest Gump's legs and tightening all the screws and telling Forrest to run, Forrest run, and bless his little heart, he tries.
Four cases that we're doing, guys, I'm really rethinking, and I need your help trying to figure them out, because we are literally with titanium connecting the left to the right palate and completely locking their ability to move from right to left. Completely locking their rib cage from being able to breathe from right to left. We've got to have another solution.
Right. Say that again, Alice. What did you just say about the titanium? I lost you because I.
Well, if you're connecting a whole hybrid of implants and you're crossing the arch on somebody who lost teeth to begin with, God knows why. They probably already came with pre-existing conditions. Now they've lost their molars, so they really can't be grounded very well. And you're putting them in titanium bar that connects the left to the right maxilla, anterior and posterior maxilla. Can you imagine? We've just locked their rib cage ability to breathe. We've just locked their ability to alternate between right and left. Maybe not, but what if? I don't have the answers. We gotta find another solution. Yes, ma'am.
I was thinking exactly that, and so I was thinking instead of all on 4, you could have 6 implants placed, 3 on one side, 3 on the other, and then
leave the midline alone. Live the midline alone. And you know, a lot of the surgeons don't want to do that because they're used to a mindset of all on 6, connect them all. We're gonna have to be the one driving what we want to see out of them. We're gonna have to
at the end of the day, if the surgeon puts 6 in, you can do whatever you want to restore it, right? So you can say, okay, well, we're gonna do all on 6, and they do their thing, you know, and then you go, and then when you make it with the lab,
we're gonna have to challenge the lab for that. So that's why I said we in this room, we're on the frontier of this. It is us that's gonna drive this industry.
Yeah, because and it's not, you know, and yes, let them do their thing. Yeah, we're still the ones who drive where they should put them and what the design is first. So we have to design the prostheses. We can't let the surgeons do their thing because they don't know where they're putting it. So I never let the surgeon put an implant in without me driving where it's going to go.
When you're putting in a hybrid with an acrylic face, why do you think they're failing?
Not even that.
So then guess what we do? We're like, let's do zirconium since acrylic face. Okay, so
Now
maybe
there's
we'll
more
bring a
vision.
hip bone instead. It's ridiculous. Yeah.
Thank you for your questions. So you'll see in Mike's article, we're getting the picture. I think we're getting what we need out of this dialogue without having to beat this horse. But this phenomena, it comes from the ground up, but it more dominantly comes from the occlusion down. And it also comes from the respiratory diaphragm down and up. So it's our job, and any opportunity we have to work with dental professionals allows them to trust us to say, I know, you guys were all happy when you saw the picture of the teeth come back in, like, oh, hey, that's the picture I'm used to looking at. Well, Mike and I are used to looking at these pictures, and our job is to find the driver, balance the driving force, put together a program that mitigates those drivers, so we bring a body up to you that allows your orthodontics to close beautifully, that allows your restorations to finish out pristine and stay healthy for life. And that's what we bring to the table from below. But we get a stick in the spokes and can't get the whole body unlocked in many instances without your support with flat plane splints and ALFs and some of these other concepts that we have and Will talked about.
I have one more question.
No, I love it.
So being that it's physical therapy, and I was going to ask this question in a small group, but I'm glad you get to ask it big. It requires the patient to do what is being asked of them to do, right? They've got to do their exercises. They have to do their breath work. Not a lot of people are very compliant. I mean,
Nobody's
obviously
compliant.
that's on them.
Nobody's compliant. Be real.
Right.
Nobody's compliant.
Right.
So what we're faced with is doing our best to convey to the patient a few things. One, as best we can in a couple of hours, explain to them what's going on with them so that they've got some grasp of what's happening. Helping them unlearn the things that have biased them or prejudiced them in a direction that would make it more difficult for them to understand what it is we're trying to get them to do. So get a good explanation. Then dangle a carrot. The carrot usually is, I'm going to give you an assignment. I only need you to do this assignment until I see you again. Then I'm going to take that assignment away, and I'm going to replace it with a new assignment. You're only going to do that for a little while, until I see you again. Then we're going to take that away and give you yet a new assignment. There is no assignment for life unless you want it to be, meaning the patient. If the patient wants it to be for life, fine, it'll be for life. But what typically they wind up with is a library, usually recorded on their cell phone, of tasks that we've had them do or are having them do, that then go to the optional shelf. You don't have to do this anymore. You can visit it if you like. But everything is based on testing. Your scores show me that even in your half-assed compliance, you're doing better. Great. Or they could show me you've been compliant like crazy and you're still not doing well. I need to change what you're doing.
So this is where co-discovery is so important.
Yes.
Where we connect the objective data to what they're experiencing. It's very powerful, and that becomes a motivator for them.
Right.
And we're gonna do a lot of that this afternoon.
Okay, but I want to just piggyback on your comment, Rachel, right?
Yes, yes.
You know, it is really perfect to see a society that's so filled with let me find what and who to blame, because I refuse to take accountability for my own issues.
True.
So it is like sometimes you're beating your head up against the wall, and these people, when it's blatant that they are accountable for something, they still will not take it in their own blame something on you. So when something is, you know, it's like, well, I came in to have my teeth done, whatever, you know, they requested this and that, you know, they don't want to hear that they have any other issue, because now they want to figure out, okay, well, I'm going to need more work. Who's going to pay for this? You're going to pay for this because you did my teeth, and I didn't have this before, and blah, blah, blah. Well, yeah, you didn't have this before because you broke everything in there, and that's why you came to me. So when you came to me, of course you didn't have the teeth in the pain, pain in the teeth, because the restorations were broken, right? So, oh, now we put restorations on, and we've adjusted them in every way possible. Alice has seen my work. And it's not because it's me. I'm just saying I'm not somebody who doesn't pay attention, right? And when you have these people that it does not matter, I'm talking even they will say things, do things, sign things, approve things, and they still want to make you accountable for something that they've now decided they don't like. So
It does
we have a
harken back
society.
to their homework and whether or not they're doing their homework and this kind of thing. But it is true, and Rachel's point is well taken. You know, it's well taken. You know, these folks do have a responsibility, and what I do see that increases compliance is regular follow-ups and changing their program in an ongoing basis, dangling the carrot, the promise. I promise I'm going to take this away. So do it a lot between now and when I see you, because this is going away. It's only here. It's a stepping stone across the creek. Once we're past it, we don't need it anymore. You can pick it up and bring it along if you like. We don't really need it anymore. We just need to get across the creek. And we do have objective tests, objective measures on the table that tell us how well a person is progressing. And we strive to improve the tests because we know that's going to ultimately improve their outcome.
I'm going to add something from what I've witnessed personally working with Dr. Lim and see patients. You're so right on that point. They do come in and they start saying, well, I'm in pain. I'm back to the old me. And our first question is, have you been doing your exercises with your splint? Well, not really, because, you know, I've been busy. And they start shaming themselves and saying, I haven't had time. And we're like, we understand, you know, just try to put it back in and start doing your exercises again. In our office, we've done it with them. We've neutral them again and breathing and putting it back in. And they're like, oh, wait, I feel my left side now. Oh, okay, we'll just go back to doing your exercises. We've had patients who are skeptical. Is this for life? I don't want to wear this for life. You know, that's everyone's fear, just like a denture, you know. Once we talk to them, no, if this is mostly on you. Because they ask me as the assistant, you know, do I have to wear this for the rest of my life? And is Dr. Lam, is this going to cure me right away? She puts it in my mouth. No, it's mostly based on you. If you know, you have to persuade them that if they really have to want to achieve that, it's based on their progress. As far as with these two, pulling them in and
That's
saying,
how you put them all back into their court.
Right. You remind them
show
it's
them
them.
on their bite, you show them, the minute they do the exercises, all of a sudden they change their bite. Like, well, it's you.
That's why you don't need to adjust appliance.
We don't adjust the appliances,
It's on
we
them.
adjust your body through neurological exercises, not orthopedic. And that's where most people get it wrong. They think exercises are what they're used to in the gym. In the gym, they're all orthopedic exercises. We're talking about neurologic, pulmonary, respiratory exercises where you're connecting certain muscles and then you breathe in it to seal the deal. And the more you do that, it's like, I said, it's like playing the piano. Initially, your hands get sticky, right? But you read the notes and you're playing and you're practicing. Eventually, your fingers just go there and you don't even think anymore. You don't have to read the notes. Right?
Now, on
So,
Amanda's, okay, what I've seen with patients, when they blame, oh, well, you know, they tell Dr. Lamb, you made it too high. I don't know, I've been in pain here. She's like, no, you know, we center them back, we have them do the breathing.
Get them neutral.
And we get them neutralized, and then they're like, oh, wait, there's my left. But they're driven by fear. Fear is the number one. Well, I went to this dentist, and then I went to this, and then I got braces, and then I got, it's everybody's fault, you know? But it's because of the pain and the fear that it's not letting them see what we're trying to involve them in and teach them as we progress.
it's a huge behavioral component.
But you earn their trust once. We've had patients who say, oh, I've had all kinds of bite marks. What is this gonna do? And me and her already seen it, so I'm like, ooh, you don't know. Like, I get excited for patients when they're coming through the door because I've seen the progress from start to, you know, where they're at. But they're skeptical, and be prepared for that. They are gonna challenge you. They're gonna say, hey, you don't know what you're doing. I'm in pain, and their body starts shifting as she and y'all eventually will start doing it. You start fixing their bite and making it less biased. So it's gonna take some time. You are gonna have to become like a therapist and coach them.
Oh, really?
You know, well, yeah, but it's gonna be to an extreme now.
Oh, yeah.
Because now their body, like he says, you have all these torsions. Now you loosen it up. It's like Justin. Oh my gosh. So now that's what we see all the time. Oh my gosh.
You're a leash them, now you gotta teach them how to do it right.
Yeah, and they hit that panic zone. I can't breathe. I don't know who I am now. So you have to coach them. You are their lifeline right now, but they have to be responsible in order to get there. Well, have you been doing this? Oh no. Let me pop it back in. Never mind. We've had patients come in. I can't bite. I don't know this. She doesn't even have. I've seen her not even touch the splint. Okay, let's just push on your rib. Take a deep breath. Let it out. Oh, we're done.
So all patients that come in for a splint adjustment in my office goes in our PT room first. They spend 15 minutes doing the exercises, and either they walk out the door and say, "I'm not sorry, I shouldn't have been here."
Yeah. You know, there's countless times that we've seen that, and I'm like, we're not doing anything about them. She goes, nope. They were just not breathing.
Or they'll
you know?
come in, they'll do the exercises, and I test them, they're not neutral. I'm like, I don't need to adjust your splint. Let's clean up your exercise. Let me see what you're doing. We clean up the exercises. Lo and behold, their splint fits better now.
Physio
Because
dentist.
the
Physio
exercise,
dentist. You gotta love it.
they use the wrong muscles doing those exercises. And you know, I'm able to catch it and redirect them and get them back. So I may not even need to touch that splint. I just need to show them how to hike their hips a little bit better.
Dang, Rachel, who knew your question was gonna start all this?
I know.
Well, that's why I was like,
I mean, they will
yeah,
tell
I'm
you.
sorry, but yeah.
They'll tell you, bring it down. Oh, I don't feel right. You gotta trim it. And she goes, no. You know, I'm not gonna trim it down because you know, once she neutralizes the body, they realize that it's not her. It's me.
I tell them your splint at this point in your program is a diagnostic device.
Yes.
It is not therapeutic.
Yeah.
It's not gonna take your pain away. Your body, your breathing will take your pain away. It's diagnostic because when you wear it, neurologically, you're gonna find the muscles that Mike's been asking you to find. You're gonna learn how to breathe with your diaphragm while those muscles are engaged. And the more you do it, the more your body will get used to it. And you pop in your splint to test yourself to say, am I neutral? I'm neutral. Am I not neutral? Darn it, I need to go do more exercise. Okay.
Christy and then Julie. I saw your hand up, Miss Christy.
Julie, you had a question.
Yeah, so Christy did as well.
Yes.
that's something I just wanted to add, is like, you guys need to be very mindful, meet the patient where they are, because their psychological stance is so much better. And as a behavioralist, that's something, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Christy Gatto. I'm a speech pathologist and a certified orofacial myologist. And so with that, it's like you need to actually look at the behavioral stance and make sure that you're explaining and understand that people learn things through what's called a zone of proximal development. And if you want to look at it, it's Vygotskian theory and everything, but at first it might take you regulating them, and then there needs to be a joint regulation, and then they'll self-regulate. And sometimes you actually have to provide that to them. And it doesn't matter the age of the patient. Every time you're putting someone in a new situation, you might need to go through all levels of that developmental process. So it's like when you have the person that is not compliant and everything else, figure out what they can be compliant to. And that might be 5% of what your goal is, but it's a step. And from the therapeutic standpoint, that's what we do all the time. Well, we know our end result's 100%, but if I can get 5% and that's where they're going to be successful, that's where we're going to start. Okay?
Meet them where they're at is great advice. What typically happens, Rachel, and Mike and I will tell you this in the real world, when they do the techniques, it resolves so many things in so many areas that becomes motivating. In spite of their own struggles and hang-ups, it's not just that they can feel another half of acrylic with their teeth, which they can, their whole body unlocks. They can rest, relax, tension goes away. Pain, literally pain and tension just melts away and goes away. And so then they just have to decide, you know, and we don't force them. We're like, you can choose to do it or not do it, but if you do it, you get this, and if you don't, you get that, and let's work together. We love you and we support you. And it really takes care of itself in most instances, in spite of the human nature concept that we kind of started this with. In the real world, they get pretty motivated to do it because it is so beneficial. And I saw your hand as well, Miss Julie.
I was just gonna, because when you were speaking and then you were speaking, it's just, you know, because the way that I go about with patients, regardless of what it's about, but I always try to put myself in a real, you know, that I'm real and I'm human too. And so I try to find something that they can rationalize. So if it's someone who maybe recently has lost weight, or, you know, their health has improved, or it's declined, but you talk to them about that whole maintenance, that management side of it, that, you know, this isn't going to be an overnight. You didn't, you know, you didn't get periodontal disease overnight. You know, and your maintenance, your management of that is going to have to be you taking accountability and you being involved in the process. But just like with, I mean, we all know Weight Watchers. Weight Watchers has you check in with them, and that's part of the program. They have you call in and talk to your coach, and where are you having struggles? Where are you? And so that's basically what we become, whether it's just with preventive hygiene, if it's with restorative, if it's with all of this that's starting to come out, airway, posture, you know, TM, nothing's going to be a fix. And so it's, you know, but it's finding something that they can rationalize and they can relate to that's going on in their own life right now already, or that they've already struggled and been through, so that they can relate it to this new therapy or this new treatment.
Thank you for those insights. Yes, Doctor.
Real quick, I'm Todd Shire. I know some of you.
Thank you, Todd.
You know, I commend you all for being here. I'm one of Mike's patients. He's helped me tremendously over the past year and a half. So is James. So is Alice. So I'm convinced this is a game changer. Maybe some of you aren't yet, and that's okay. It's a journey. It's not going to happen immediately. When I first heard Alice talk about this, it was at our study club, and we were all like, what the heck is she talking about? She's talking about the arches of our feet, and she's putting us up on a table and manipulating us, and we were all like, what the heck is going on here? How does this tie to teeth? But now I get it, and I think all of you are starting to get it too. Some of the, Christy and others already had it a long time ago, right, because of their world. As a dentist, it's tough to really grab a hold of this. But once you do, it really will open your eyes to so many other things than teeth. So I really commend you. I also want to comment that the women, they give a shit, right? I've noticed that in my study clubs. The women show up. The women are lifelong learners. and the guys are drilling teeth right now, right? Because they probably don't need to learn anymore. So that's just my observation, and this, you guys are just confirming that. So there's a few guys here. I know most of them are teaching, and I really appreciate you guys coming. We are actually done clinically, so if you guys need to use the lunchroom, you can. I think you're doing a working lunch, but really thanks for respecting the patients this morning. But we're now going for an afternoon of employee reviews, which is, anybody wants to do that for me?
Have fun with that.
Yeah.
Thank Todd, because he allowed us to use his facility.
Thank you, Todd.
The tuition fee for the course at a minimal, so to make this possible for everybody, given, you know, the struggles everyone's had this past year. You know, Mike and I really wanted to be able to not be cost prohibitive, and we couldn't have done this without Todd. So thank you, Todd.
Thank you, Todd.
I'll take this opportunity to always plug education. We are looking for a few more individuals that have like-minded core values on dentistry for our Spear Study Club. So if anybody's interested in Spear Study Clubs, please let us know. And also, we have some great courses over at IHDS this spring. You can share the website or wherever, but it's kind of, this has been our study club home for years, and we really do use this classroom a lot. It's been a wonderful asset for our research team and meetings, but IHDS, if you haven't been there, it's next level. It's the finest facility I've ever been in, and I've been in quite a few. And it's meant for hands-on learning and live patient care, and there's some great stuff coming on. Implant fellowships, we're doing a 3-weekend fellowship for dentists that want to learn how to place implants and have a lifelong mentor in that process. We're doing some really cool airway courses called Beyond Perio Ortho Limits, that's kind of DSD, airway, ortho, perio, orthognathics. So David Alfie, an oral maxillofacial surgeon, has joined our team on that with Giancarlo Romero.
Fellowship for implants is the only fellowship in the country that does it on human matter.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Really,
So there, you can see the nerves, you see everything.
yeah, we have 7 faculty, and these faculty have either taught or gone to fellowships all over the world, and we kind of combined all our experiences to create that fellowship with a great responsibility to not just take you to Mexico and place 30 implants, right? The responsibility is to learn how to do it right. And then session 4 is we do it over the shoulder in your office if you're in Texas, or you can come to the facility and work on your patients if you have a Texas license. So it's really a different kind of fellowship, but it's meant to really immerse yourselves into treatment planning, really understanding how the digital workflow can complement implants. But as I was talking about Beyond Perio Limits, digital is not just implants, right? The ability to diagnose, treatment plan, collaborate between the interdisciplinary team on everything you can imagine. PRI, right? That's absolutely related to the anatomical evaluation we do with CBCT and other. So I'd encourage you to come check that out sometime. You guys have a great afternoon. I'll try to get back in here if we can get finished up with our reviews. If not, have a great weekend, and so call this up because it's good stuff. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
And I didn't get to meet you, but
James
I guess you guys
Anderson.
are
It's an honor to be here. Thank you, Todd. Yes, we're partners.
Yeah.
I hope you have a good view of this guy because he reflects on me, and I try to keep him clean and straightened up. And
I call them the spirit voice of the PRI world.
Yeah.
They're the yin and yang of each other.
Have you guys done any manipulations of here?
We're about to this afternoon.
Okay. That's freaky.
You'd rather do the peer review thing?
Alice, with the food here, maybe, and the timing, maybe everybody could maybe get their food, and I could just finish a little summary and let them see some visual things while we're starting to eat. Would that help?
Good. Let's take a quick break.
And any break that you need, and get your food and come get settled, and then just a quick